Shalom. Sorry, I was just preparing a couple of things. Rhetoric had a dance party. That's right, he had a war dance party. He called all his friends to come and help him. So I'm going to turn up to the dance and do some moves. So pathetic. So, Dunning-Kruger. What's a Dunning-Kruger effect? It's when you are convinced that you're very intelligent. Now, if you think that you might be mistaken sometimes, like your tell you what, I will do this. Okay. If you know or suspect that sometimes you might be mistaken, and you say, could be mistaken, that's not very Dunning-Kruger. However, insisting that something which is patently false is absolutely correct. Insisting on using terms wrongly, convinced that they're right, that's Dunning-Kruger. So we're going to look. First, we're going to start with a crippling move. So let me move this window away. Greetings everybody in the chat. Nice to see you. First, we're going to start off with a windmill ending with a head spin. Okay? Finished. You don't top that. Thank you. Now, so, watch what I'm going to show. I'm going to show, first of all, oops, that wasn't supposed to happen. First of all, this, which is part of what I showed in the last video. This is Rhetoric tracking the International Space Station stabilized. I'm just going to hop ahead. You can keep your mind or your eye on the azimuth if you like, but I'm just going to jump ahead and we'll see how the orientation of the ISS does not change for a long period. It distorts, doesn't quite change. Now, Rhetoric insists, one, that I watched his live hangout and refused to mention it, which isn't true because I didn't know he had a live hangout. And two, that having watched the live hangout, I purposefully didn't mention it to hide things. It's like, no, silly. In fact, I'm going to show it now to show the fraud of astronomy live. That's right. Pay attention to the so-called solar panels, okay, which somehow remain illuminated. Now they're receiving light, but when it's gone past that halfway point at 270, they're still receiving, oh, that's interesting, shouldn't the light be on the other side of the panels? Never mind, they're probably transparent. Now, notice how the panel on the left is higher than the panel on the right. Panel on the left higher than the panel on the right. It's all the way through, panel on the left higher than panel on the right. Past the point of 270 azimuth, which is directly west, where the thing should be sideways onto the observer, but no, it doesn't. No, panel to the left higher than panel to the right. Okay, now let's go to the actual live tracking, which he was so annoyed that I hadn't watched or wasn't mentioning. Now, he's convinced that I watched it, and then a complete fraud, a complete dishonest fraud. Oh, by the way, I should say, Rhetoric's war dance party was a fundraiser for Sean Hufford, the e-beggar, the Globling e-beggar, that guy. Yeah, they're begging for him, for some money, for him, just. Okay, so, a Dan Pratt style begging. You know, he needs to move, he needs money, please give him money. Okay, so again, this is from the live feed, okay? It happened November 20th. We will dissect this later. There is no, on the top of the screen, as you can see, I don't think I'm showing my cursor, but never mind. On the top left, you see there's no data being displayed there. But I'm going to move across Panel on the left higher than panel on the right. Okay, that's the main point. Panel on the left higher than panel on the right. All of the time. In my hangout criticizing this, I pointed out that they should bring some rotation to the image. Now, this is the dance party. The ISS Antonio Subirats glitch. Isosceles, not equilateral. That's right. We'll go into this isosceles, not equilateral soon. This is what I'm referring to. This was their dance party. Now, I mentioned in it, and I'm going to play a large chunk of it. A lot of this hangout is going to be me pausing his hangout and correcting them and explaining to them and sometimes agreeing with them. Okay? Now, I pointed out that there should be rotation on 2 axes. Whilst they're on this hangout, Astronomy Live, who's an astronomer, has been tweaking his footage, which is the footage you're looking at right now. This is tweaked footage. The azimuth is the same in the top left. You'll see that the azimuth corresponds to the footage we were just looking at, which I think was this one. Yeah. It corresponds to this footage. However, the panel on the left is higher than the panel on the right. Which panel is higher here? It's the one on the right, not the one on the left. Let's move ahead. I'm just moving ahead slowly. Interesting. It's almost like this footage, which has the panel. Let me go back. Let me pause. The panel on the left is lower. You'll see when it kicks over. I'm just going to play the footage. Oh, what's going on here? The panel on the left is lower than the panel on the right. So this was footage that he corrected whilst on this hangout. Obviously he was distracted by the hangout and tried to make his footage correspond to my drawings of the motion. This is the real footage. This is the let's adjust things so you can see more rotation. Unfortunately, I think he just flipped the footage, I don't know. But it shows manipulation because he flipped the footage and took this, the data on the top left. So he separated the masks, the layers, fiddled with the footage, re-put the layers together so he could show it. Watch. Starts off, panel on the left, lower than panel on the right. Let's look at the original footage. Oh no! Panel on the left, higher than panel on the right. Fraud. This means fraud. Literally, this is image manipulation. That's a very bad move when the discussion is about the ISS. To go into your footage and tweak it and manipulate it, and by mistake, because you're busy on this hangout, mess up and flip it. Can you see? This is the manipulated footage. Panel on the left is lower. This is the original footage. Panel on the right is higher. This is the footage that I critiqued. Panel on the left is higher. Panel on the left is higher. These are original footage, okay? This is the part of what I critiqued. This is part of the live footage. Panel on the left, higher. This is the manipulated footage. I'm going to play it. Oh dear. Oh dear. He flipped and got it wrong. Good gosh. It's almost like he doesn't understand the 3D world quite so well. Before I go any further, I'm going to explain what should be seen. Now, on the flat earth, many people, including Eric Dubay, have pointed this out. When looking at planes in the horizon, what we should be seeing really is this, like the bottom of a plane. Do we ever see this? No, we don't. Okay, so this is what we should be seeing. Never should we see that followed by this, followed by this, if it's going up. If it's going sideways, same distance from the horizon, hence why I put a horizon, then yes, but that's not what the ISS was doing. So, bong, number one. This is what should be happening. And what does happen? Plane above the horizon, coming towards us and at a slight angle. So not directly towards us, plane. Then plane, once it's going kind of past us, see how the object closest to us goes higher. Object closest to us goes higher. Then we start to see it from behind. And then we see it properly from behind. Do we see this with the ISS? Not really. When people make footage, create footage of the ISS, when it doesn't quite work how they would like it to work, whether or not the ISS is an actual light in the sky continuously doing circles, or whether it's just for now, doesn't matter. But when people manipulate footage to correspond with what they think is the real world, and they mess up big time by flipping the footage, and somebody like me comes along and points that out, it's bong, bitch. What the heck were you doing, Astronomy Live? What the hell were you doing? This is your manipulated footage with the left panel lower down. This is the footage that I critiqued with the left panel higher up. This is a footage from the live feed, left panel higher up. Oopsies! Looks like manipulation took place. That's a bit of a kicker to start off with, isn't it? Now I'm going to go to 940, I think it was. Oh, damn, I had it spot on. Never mind.
He has, wait a minute. He has a single solitary patron.
Oh, wait.
The people who have money. Oh, it's gonna get better. Okay. Oh God.
That's where I wanted to start at the, oh God. Because I had an old hangout that I chopped into pieces because it went on for a long time, which I started with, oh God. It's the one with where Red's Rhetoric couldn't quite answer questions. He can't quite answer questions in his own hangout. You'll see, I will play it. So that's where I wanted to start. I'm sorry that I messed it up. It was 9:14. Okay, so here.
God. No, it's not. I want to poke myself in the eye already. Oh, it's gonna get better.
Okay, there I am. No hat today. Very, very nice hair. Not really. A glitch with the ISS. And some other stuff. So, oh, just to mention, after I've done this, I will go into some other stuff. In fact, I'll go into some other stuff whilst discussing this. The Rhetoric dance party won't be able to deal with it, but it's not for them. They can take footage of Santa Claus landing all they want. It's not really relevant or important. It's for realists that it's important, what I will be showing. So, okay, let's go. Welcome, the people who have managed to join, Doug. First, a huge thank you to Jason Castle, new patron. Cool, thank you, dude. Right,
He has,
now.
wait a minute. He has a single solitary patron.
No, silly. That's why I said a new patron. A new patron? Yeah, it could be the first patron, in which case you might say the first patron, or my first patron. Or it's a new patron and it's one of a number, but assume that a new patron means singular, the first. Like, okay, that's a strange way of thinking, but let's continue.
I mean, I'm concerned about the fact he has any patrons. People pay money.
This man is Fight the Flat Earth. This is an absolute cretin. This is a dishonest person who says he lost his leg in a secret war that Britain was engaged in. Not really. It was an accident, and it must have been either during maintenance or manoeuvres, but not during a war, because Britain has not been involved in any secret wars. And if it was a non-secret war, he would have simply said what war it was that it happened at. So it's just a complete fraud. Well, this man is concerned. Okay.
To him
for this garbage, but I mean,
even the mentally limited need assistance from time to time.
I would say the mentally limited especially need assistance. That's yes, the mentally limited, well, you would expect that they would need assistance. But to say even the mentally, it's like, that would be like saying even the wealthy need donations. It does. Do you see? It doesn't quite go. If you were talking about wealthy people who do not need, then even applies. But to people that would need, that's a well. But this is the incredibly low level of intelligence that we're dealing with at this dance party.
Makes sense.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
Oh wait! I see someone in the chat. Multi-Thompson Rice, Antonio, why engage with idiots? Because I want to, and it helps me to teach people. Some globelings will be watching now because this is a response, and they'll see, oh, actually, what he just showed about the footage being manipulated, that's a good point, and I wouldn't be able to really do that if it wasn't by engaging. Okay, so there you go. That's your answer.
Right, more garbage.
What is this? Where am I? Here. Okay. What we're looking at for educational purposes,
Of course.
is Rhetoric's streaming of footage captured by a gentleman I had a debate with, along with Rhetoric, regarding triangles and how they didn't really understand. You can't just join two different triangles and make a third triangle out of it. All of that.
Wait.
That
Did
pause.
you just say that you guys didn't understand triangles?
Yeah, he apparently.
Oh, the irony.
Yeah, he apparently.
That was Fight the Flat Earth, who just said, did he just say that you guys didn't understand triangles? Oh, the irony. Oh, wonderful. So I take it you understand triangles? Fight the Flat Earth? It sounds like there's an irony there. In which case, say if somebody were to ask a question about triangles, you might jump in and answer it. Especially if they say, can anybody answer this? Or is there anyone who can answer? You might say, yeah, I can answer it, instead of staying silent. Why do I say this? Oh, you'll see.
Apparently thinks that we bolted triangles together. That's, I mean, what? No, that's not how any of this works. Nothing of what he said is...
That's actually what he did. I will show it. In fact, he will show it without realizing that that's what he's doing.
It's actually comporting with reality of how we actually did our observation when it came to deriving the altitude of the space station.
Well, here's a question. What happens when you buy...
Wait. Here, Fight the Flat Earth might want to answer, or Sean Hufford, or Team Skeptic, some of the other dancers at the dance party. Let's see what this question's going to be. Let me go back.
It's reality of how we actually did our observation when it came to deriving the altitude of the space station.
Well, here's a question. What happens when you bisect a triangle?
Ooh, I know. Let's hear Red's answer it. In fact, let's all of them try to answer it. Or will it be crickets?
Bisect a triangle. Does anyone else want to go ahead and take that? Because I got some images that I'm going to bring up in a moment.
Because I don't know is Red's answer. Let's hear Fight the Flat Earth, Team Skeptic, Sean Hufford. Let's hear their answers.
Alright, images are coming
Oh, silence? That's interesting.
up.
More silence. That's interesting. They all heard the question. What happens if you bisect a triangle? Oh, one of them coughed awkwardly. I'm going to go back and play that again.
I'm going to bring up in a moment. All right, images are coming up. All right, so let's see.
Interesting, huh? Hey, fight the flat earth! Why don't you show you understand triangles? Why don't you take your opportunity? The guy who asked the question is like, huh, none of you want to answer it? Watch. And even then, none of them says, yeah, dude, I was waiting to see if somebody else wanted to, or sorry, I was away, or couldn't get to. No, all of them just. I'm going to play this part again.
No one wants to take the softball. When you bisect one
Nobody wants to take the softball.
triangle, you end up making 2 triangles.
And now all of them are like, that was kind of intuitive. I could have tried answering, but they were too busy bisecting a triangle. What happens? What happens? Play it again.
Some images that I'm going to bring.
Here's a question. What?
Pay attention to this silence. I haven't counted the seconds. I will count the seconds now. And I will count Red talking as silence, because it's not actually responding to the question. He could. It's very easy. It's a very simple question. So I'm going to count the silence between the time the guy asks the question and the time the guy himself answers it. Okay, so let's go.
What happens when you bisect a triangle?
When you
1,
bisect a triangle.
2,
Does anyone else want to
3,
go ahead and take that?
4,
Because I got some images that I'm going to
5,
bring up in a moment.
6, 7, 8,
All right, images
9,
are coming up.
10, 11, 12, 13,
All right, so let's
14, 15 seconds. Now the guy who asked the question is going to answer it himself.
No one wants to take the softball. When you bisect one triangle, you end up making 2 triangles.
You make, if you bisect an equilateral triangle, you make 2 right angle triangles.
What, Red? I'm going to play that again.
One triangle, you end up making 2 triangles.
You make, if you bisect an equilateral triangle, you make 2 right angle triangles.
Yep.
So,
Wait a minute. No. It's not just... Yep. Okay. The answer is... sorry, an equilateral? What about an isosceles? That's the answer. Okay. So, I'm going to stop screen sharing and show Reds and fight the flat earth. I mean, fight the fat earth, I think it is. I'm not sure. Which of these can you bisect? Red said, if you take an equilateral, you can bisect it to right. Yeah, that's right. What about this one? Is this an equilateral triangle? It's not, is it? Can you bisect it? You can, can't you? Is the answer you can bisect an equilateral triangle and get 2 right angle triangles? No. The answer is you can bisect an equilateral or an isosceles and arrive at a right angle. Thank you. Let's continue. Man, these guys. The Dunning-Kruger is alarming. It's just, wow. But let's continue.
so this is the situation that we have here. So, to recap, everyone, and I do apologize for having to repeat this shit again and again and again, but Antonio's kind of a fucking idiot, so this is basically where we're at right now.
Ding.
So, when we... good one. So, when myself and Astronomy Live did the observation of the International Space Station to derive its altitude, we waited for a lunar transit. Astronomy Live was on one side of the transit path, I was on the other side of the transit path. We weren't exactly equidistant from the center path line, but it was good enough for our purposes. Anyway.
Now I'm going to show again. The poor dim-dims. Look, red and Astronomy Live. This is what you had. This was red and this was Astronomy Live. This. Now, what's wrong with this situation? You have a right angle there and there, but what's wrong with this situation? Huh? What's wrong? You might notice this hypotenuse is longer than this one. But wait a second, what do these represent? They represent the line of sight in this case. So here's Astronomy Live, and the ISS is at a distance from Astronomy Live. Here's red, and the ISS is at a different distance from red. This is a mathematical construct of where the ISS would be at a distance from that mean line, that transit line. But that would be only at this point when you were facing each other. You understand? Look, I'm going to use my hands. I did this the other day in the "you're there, I'm here" thing. Maybe you'll understand this. For this line to be the line that's explaining or describing distance to the ISS, you must be facing each other. You're looking up, but you're facing generally chest to chest. You can bump chest and then run back to your equipment. You understand? That point. But that wasn't the point, was it? You were both at this angle. You have no idea. You did the reading over there somewhere, but you calculated the height from here because you calculated the distance between you. What does that mean? That means, watch what I do, triangles, and I'm holding them upright, okay? But wait a second. What happens now? Keep watching, okay? This is going to appear like a magic trick to you. Fight the fat earth and rhetoric. Watch. See the shape of that triangle? I'm not going to do any magic trick. All I'm going to do is this. Oh, wait a second. It looks like that triangle has changed. That's right. Why does it look like that? Because this is plane trigonometry. Later, they work out a different angle from the point of the observer, being Astronomy Live, and this center line between the two, that imaginary point, some other point, to say, look, from my elevation, which was 53 degrees, my elevation 53 degrees, distance to the ISS. You can't take two different triangles and combine them and make a third isosceles triangle. You just can't. Look, these are scalene. Okay, none of the sides are the same length. That's what scalene means. It doesn't matter that it's right angle. Right angle is also scalene. Okay, you can't take two scalene triangles and combine them into one isosceles. I mean, what went wrong in your maths education, fellas? Let's continue. Where is it? Here.
In my original video, I said that the triangle that it made was an equilateral triangle, and
You just heard him say that in his video, he said that he made an equilateral triangle. Remember the drawing that I showed a minute ago? This is an equilateral triangle. That's not what they had. Once they combined the two scalene triangles, they arrived at an isosceles, not at an equilateral. This is what I was referring to when people have the Dunning-Kruger. They are convinced that they know, convinced that they're correct. They don't check. So, Reds, was it an equilateral triangle? Well, we'll see, because he's going to show it. Because he doesn't quite know the difference, he doesn't understand that when he's showing an isosceles, having described it as an equilateral triangle, and there's other people there who know the difference, they're just staying quiet. That's retarded, fellas. Sorry, but that's stupid. So let's continue.
You said that, oh, no, it is a scaling triangle, and therefore your mathematics are wrong because...
No, I said they both had scaling triangles, and you can't combine two scaling triangles that are different from each other and arrive at one isosceles. You just can't do that. And then divide that new isosceles into two distinct scaling triangles from the ones you started off with. Do you understand?
Reasons. So what I did was I had Cheshire whip something up real quick, so I am going to paste it here on the slide, so I won't be able to show you guys inside the Hangout. Actually, I might be able to, so let me do that real quick. So let's share screens. There we go. Perfect. So this is what Cheshire was able to whip up. So the triangle that you're seeing on the left is the triangle that I used in my video diagram. So on this corner, you would have one observer. On the other corner...
Okay. What you see on the screen before you, you have two triangles. The one on the left is an isosceles triangle bisected into two scalene. The one on the right is a scalene bisected into two scalene. Instead of working with those two scalene, what they did was they invented the triangle on the left, figured out with a couple of assumptions only, took some details, arrived at some conclusions, then switched those conclusions over to the triangle on the right. Why did they do this? Because you cannot arrive at those answers using the triangle on the right. What does this mean? It means the answers are fabricated. And that fabrication is based on the assumptions that were factored into the first triangle, the one on the left, the one that they used for their calculations. They did not use the one on the right for their calculations. All of this that you're seeing on the screen now, all of this is back engineered from my objection, from me pointing out to them, you don't understand triangles, you cannot do this with triangles. This is like taking a ham sandwich and a cheese sandwich and saying that you can combine the two into a chicken sandwich. It doesn't work like that. Let's continue.
You would have another observer. Both of these added together equals 1.11 kilometers. And when you take the angle at the top at 0.1212 degrees, cut it in half to make...
Why do you take the angle on the top to be 1.002 degrees? Is that because that's the angle on the left? Have you assumed that from the invented triangle? There is neither halfway between the two of you, which is, it's neither on the line of transit for the moon or the line of observation for your transit of the ISS across the face of the moon. Do you understand? I'm going to show again with the little cutout triangles. Maybe now you will understand. Okay. This is the observation angle. So the ISS was somewhere in that direction for Astronomy Live. Okay? That direction at some distance. This was apparently the direction at some distance for red. Different distance, do you see? Look, I will prove it to you. Let's put these sides together. Oh, look, this one is longer. Okay, so different directions. Now, apparently, according to you, you're not quite understanding that what you're drawing is this. Okay, you don't understand that. Astronomy Life does, but he's not going to explain it to you because, you know, you'll feel bad if he does. So, you're not understanding that you cannot take these observations, so ISS there and ISS there, and say, what we'll do is, we'll keep this baseline, we'll drop a line from here, the center, we'll say that you saw the ISS in, wait a minute, I have a little pointer, we'll use the chopstick. We'll say that you saw the ISS in that direction, and I'll say that I saw the ISS in that direction. Yes, let's do that. Let's work out the angle on that. Once you've worked out the angle on that, you just transfer it, back engineering, into your original triangle. But that's just cockamamie crackpot half-wittery. See if you know anybody in the army who would do that. Just go and ask them, moron. Let's continue.
2 right angle triangles, you get 0.0606 degrees and 0.555 kilometers. Finding this out to solve for x equals 0.555 kilometers divided by the tangent of 0.0606 equals 524.73 kilometers.
You've already done far too much math for any flat earther, you realise that?
Fatty Matt Fight the Flat Earth is saying, too much math for any flat earther. Hey, is that the one speaking who remained quiet when the question was asked regarding bisecting a triangle? You big fatty flat fat. You dim. You stayed quiet. Everybody heard you stay quiet. Now they've heard it extra because I've played it extra. You big fraud. You're a fraud and you know it. Too much math for flat earthers. Hilarious. You didn't understand the question about bisecting a triangle, did ya?
I understand this, but press on we do. What Antonio thinks happened is that, no, your triangle was a scaling triangle, so the math is different. Well, the fact is this. Even if we gave that to him, let's say there was 0.
Even if you gave that to... You don't have to give anything to me. Based on your observation, that was the situation. Those were the circumstances. There's no giving anything to anyone. Let's continue.
664 kilometers on one side and 0.446 kilometers on the other side of the transit path.
Great, that's correct. The kilometers, correct. Now let's see what might be assumed or borrowed from the fabricated triangle. Let's go.
That would equal 0.0725 degrees on this side and 0.0486 degrees on the other side.
No, it wouldn't. That's only translating what you got from the fabricated triangle over to yours. You've just totally fabricated that. That's right. How do we know you fabricated that? Well, because you don't have the angles at the bottom. You know the angles for your observation? You don't have those angles, do you? No, you don't. Oopsie daisies, that was a bit of a lapse of concentration. Sorry, I have a cat to deal with. Let's continue.
So you have a difference of 59.819% on this side, 40.181% on the other side. But if you take any of these triangles and solve for x, guess what happens? On the first one, 0.664 divided by the tangent of 0.0725 equals...
No, that's a fabricated triangle. That's just a construct based on assumptions that has neither your observation nor Astronomy Live's observation. Do you understand? The first triangle is invented, does not apply to the real world. Do you understand? Now you can say, and therefore this is the answer. It doesn't matter. You could change that triangle. You could do all kinds of things. And say, and therefore that's the answer. It's like a wizard did it. So let's continue listening.
524.75 kilometers. Very close to the original value that we found.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Because the original value that you found was based on an entirely fabricated triangle that does not take your line of sight observation to the ISS or the moon into account. Takes neither. You might as well just employ an exercise in, well, how far would the ISS be if these were the triangles and this is how far the ISS was? Like, oh wait, so you start off knowing, oh right, oh, well, okay, we'll just draw a triangle and we'll bisect it and we'll say, well, there you go, this is the distance. Like, oh, that's interesting. Can you do that from the triangle on the right? No, you cannot. Let's continue.
You do this to the other one, so 0.446 kilometers divided by the tangent.
You see what he's doing? He's just simply taking the results from the fabricated triangle, the theoretical, hypothetical, the necessary triangle, borrowing the results from that and positing it into the original. Let's continue.
Of 0.0486 degrees, that equals 525.8 kilometers. We are little more than a single kilometer off our original value.
Ooh.
Basically,
I do have a question, seeing as how we got those results for Astronomy Live, someone who actually deals with more in-depth hard sciences in his professional realm. Would you consider the deviation between those two answers to be within the margin of error?
yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
I think so. Anyone else want to speak up on that? Oh,
Wait a second, wait. That question was, hey, you know, from your entirely fabricated triangle that only has one datum, and that's the distance between you and Astronomy Live. That's all it has. Okay. It doesn't have angle of observation. It has nothing else. You can't establish the distance to the moon, therefore you can't establish the distance between the two tracks for the parallax between you. You can establish basically nothing from that triangle, and the answer you got from factoring in, well, what you needed to arrive at a satisfactory answer to yourselves. When you translate that to the other now fabricated triangle, which is a triangle where you've just taken those figures that you invented and put them in and say, that's interesting. On the one where we just put the same figures in that we borrowed from the one we invented, we've got an almost identical situation. That's peculiar. Of course it's peculiar.
do you find any problem with us getting an answer of 524.73 kilometers when you could possibly get an answer of 525.8 kilometers?
Yeah, I have an issue. Maths isn't reality.
Oh, Fatty McFat, who doesn't understand triangles and remains silent. Hey, there's somebody in the chat. Who is it? I think that he was one of the dancers. 82 Productions, I think, might have been one of the guys in there. I don't know. Okay, I could be wrong. Did he ask the question, or was he another one that remained quiet? Anyway, let's continue.
Of course. But that's why no one loves you, and that's why your mom disowned you.
That was a bit harsh. Okay, we know that Fatty, what's his name? Whatever he's called, Fight the Flat Earth with no chin. That guy, that very weak guy, we know he had to move to Scotland because his parents disowned him. It's a bit nasty saying that to him. Right there, live and everything. That's harsh, dude. A joke. I don't know any of that. I just made it up. It might be true. I don't know. I mean, some people do get disowned, but, you know, that's sad. It's sad. Let's continue.
Exactly. So, basically, what I'm trying to say here, very short and simple, is Antonio, you're a fucking dumbass.
But another difference between triangles, I know what you can and cannot do with triangles. Oopsies, I don't mix them up. I don't say equilateral when I mean isosceles continuously over and over in your hangout like you did. So I'm going to play a rather big chunk of your hangout. Thanks for leaving it live. I'm going to play it so people can hear you saying equilateral, equilateral. Look, two sides being equal does not make it equilateral. Equilateral means all sides being equal. Okay, understand? Okay, let's continue.
Okay? Whether the triangle is equilateral or scalene, it doesn't matter. We still get an answer that is roughly the same as the original answer I gave in my original video. Again, the International Space Station is over 250 miles in altitude. We confirmed this. Simply saying, oh no, Red's Rhetoric's triangle was scalene and he didn't use scalene in his video, therefore error, conspiracy, bullshit.
Look, Dim Dim. The triangle on the left that you have there, when you bisect it, you have two scalene triangles. I did not say you did not use scalene triangles. You have one, you have two, when you take the isosceles and bisect it. Do you? Am I getting through to you at all?
Shit debunking, nonsense. No, that's not how any of this shit works. See, look at the answer, 524.73, 524.75, and 525.8. So,
Hey, what do they come from? Let's face it, all you had was the distance between you and Astronomy Live. And you had the moon in the sky. And you had equipment. But what angles did you have? You had one, didn't you? And it doesn't quite work. Because you can't just combine that to yours. Because if you both have 53 degrees and your lines of sight are parallel, then you're buggered, aren't you? Oh, they're not parallel. Wonderful. Then you have a scalene triangle to start off with, and you can't bisect a scalene triangle, you moron. Why not? Well, let's look at what bisect means. Bisect, math is fun. Bisect means to divide into two equal parts. You can bisect lines, angles, and more. The dividing line is called the bisector. Do you understand? You cannot bisect a scalene triangle because you do not have two equal triangles as a result of the bisection. Do you understand? That's why you can't use it to triangulate shit. But let's continue.
Once again, you can eat a dick. Now, as far as him saying that we are bolting two triangles together, he means that we are doing this. Let me go ahead and share that screen for you guys. There you go. That means that we are doing this. So on the original triangle that we found, figuring out how far away the space station was from us being the observer, we figured out...
Now he's entirely making up what he's talking about now. Okay, so he's got a bit confused, forgotten that the line of sight between his angle and Astronomy Live's, that's their respective distances to the ISS, and those distances are rather different. They shouldn't be rather different. They're only a kilometre away from each other. It should be very, very similar. But no. It's drastically different. So, forgetting all about that, when they invented that isosceles triangle so that they could do the math, and they dropped that central line, that was neither the transit of the ISS nor the moon's actual nadir. Yeah. They worked out on that. They worked on that and said that that was their distance. It's like, wow, dude, you're in two different locations, okay? If you were in the same location, yeah, maybe. But you would still be talking about one of the black lines. Do you understand? Not the one with the angle, one of the other two black lines. That would be your distance to the ISS. Let's continue.
About 524.73 kilometers. That is serving as the hypotenuse of a different triangle, G being on the ground, and the bottom portion of this leg at 53 degrees being also on the ground. So we have 53 degrees.
Listen, Dim Dim. You don't understand what you're doing, what you're showing here. That is not the 53 degrees of Astronomy Live. The bottom of this triangle, which happens, for some reason, you've chosen to show an equilateral triangle. Goodness knows why. The bottom of the triangle, the point pointing down, let's call that his observation point. That's where this pink area should go. Do you understand? That's where the 53 degrees would be. Do you understand? Not the transit line at this imaginary point halfway, not quite halfway between you, biased towards you, Red, so closer to you and more distant from him. That's the point you're now projecting this place from, as if the observation was taken at that point, which it wasn't. Let's continue.
We figured out how far away the space station was from the observer, which was us, which serves as the hypotenuse of our right triangle. Then we can figure out the altitude. And that one is 524.73 kilometers times the sine of 53 degrees, which comes out to around 260 miles in altitude for the leg of G and the ISS on this side. This is completely legit math. So,
do you understand how that angle is leaning over? I'm going to show it with because angles they translate to like real world. I've already shown it. I said that you might think it was magical. I'm going to show it again. Look, see this triangle? It has a specific shape in front of your eyes right now. If I do this, that shape changes, doesn't it? The sides remain the same. Now you're talking about this. You're talking about a triangle, well, here. That's what you're talking about. However, notice my fingers, okay? You're talking about 53 degrees here. But wait a second, that's not where Astronomy Live was. Watch carefully. See this? Where you say the 53 degrees is? This is where Astronomy Live was. Do you understand? This, not this. Let's continue.
Antonio, if you wish to argue against that, then you have to show exactly where I fuck up here. Simply saying, oh, you're bolting two triangles together, that you can't do that, isn't going to cut it. You have to actually give a valid explanation for your bullshit.
I just did. I gave it in the previous Hangouts where I joined you on Astronomy Live and you immediately pulled it. That Hangout that you immediately pulled, I explained it to you then. You still don't get it.
If you're unable to do that, then do us all a favor and shut the fuck up. Okay? Okay, perfect. Alright, so, 82 Productions, more garbage, please.
Anyway, so this is Rhetoric, and to be fair, it comes from Astronomy Live. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to play a portion of it. I'm not going to play all of it because we don't need to. I want you to pay special attention to this, okay? The azimuth here, 234 degrees, okay? The footage starts with the azimuth at 234 degrees.
Now, this is the point that they should have just continuously driven home This is where I made an error. Absolutely, and I hold my hands up to it. And I will explain the error. They explain it, but I'm going to explain it too. This is their only point. What they're going to show now, that's their only point. Like, great. You could have just started with that, you know, and done without the waffle and the little jiggly dancing. But let's continue.
Degrees. That means with the north behind you and the south in front of you, 234 would be to your right and north. Okay, just slightly.
That's wrong. It would have to be above 270. So beyond 270 to be north. But let's continue. That wasn't the main point. The main point was the direction that I said it should be moving in versus their azimuth. But we've just seen at the very start of this that this footage here was completely fabricated. So we really have no real idea. We have no idea what direction the ISS was moving in or anything like that. But let's continue.
To the north.
Can I call a drink there?
Okay, yep, drink. Okay, so drink has been called. Astronomy Live, you have the floor.
So, if I'm understanding him correctly there in that statement, he's saying that 234 degrees is to, if you're facing due south, 234 degrees is to your right and then slightly north.
Yes.
So north of due west? Since when is 234 degrees north of due west?
So if you're facing south, he said you're facing south and north is behind you.
Right.
Yep.
And then he said 234 degrees would be to your right and slightly north.
So to your right and slightly behind you, which is incorrect. It would be to your right, but slightly in front of you. Because
That is what I was saying. It would be to your right and slightly north, as in slightly moving away from south. But never mind.
directly to your right, if you're looking dead nut south, is 270.
Exactly.
Yep, so, yeah, because if you're looking to your right and slightly north, that would be towards northwest.
Yep.
Yeah, he's already fucked up.
Gabriella in the chat asked, why is Subrax talking like that? That's just his voice. Sorry.
Yeah, we apologize. Alright, more garbage.
Azimuth is a bearing system. It's pretty simple. Okay.
And yet this guy was able to fuck it up.
To jump to the point where this footage goes very, very freaky, but I'll show you how freaky it goes. To here. Now I'm going to show you. This is 247. Is that at 234? Now 247. If Reds is watching this, he might start to see the problem.
No, I don't see a problem here.
Start to see the problem. And the next.
Hang on, drink. I do see a problem, and that problem is that a flat earther is attempting to scrutinize our footage. Oh, the lulz. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over some things here. I'm going to go ahead and go with a gin and tonic. What's everyone else going to go with? Because we're going to need some alcohol to get through this bullshit. Tequila. Whiskey.
I just thought
I've already had a grand margarita. I'm now just drinking water.
Oh, pansy.
So you're having 2 glasses of water, but one of them is flavored. Nice.
Hilarious. This way I can facepalm if I need to. I don't like to facepalm, but sometimes you must.
Alright, more garbage.
Okay, come on. The next part, I'm going to just jump ahead and show what happens to the footage. Now, what happens to the footage is not... Let me take the audio down. What happens to the footage is not the glitch. There's 2 huge glitches with this. Okay?
Glitches,
So
he says.
the rest of the footage from just after halfway is this. This is apparently, this is the ISS. Yeah, you might think, well, that's very freaky for the ISS, for an astronomer capturing it. What the heck's wrong with his equipment?
Drink.
It turns out, sorry folks, I just hit the thing. I'm going to have to move it ahead. it turns out, where I was just saying what was wrong with their equipment, turns out they were pushing it and shoving it with their fingers. That's what it was. That's right. They were physically touching the camera that was zoomed into its max. Yeah, we'll just prod it a bit, see what happens. So when I say what was wrong with their equipment, what was wrong is they were touching it. That's right. Touching a telescope fixed to a camera on a mount. Yeah, because that's what you should do, isn't it? It's not really. I'm joking. Right. So I just accidentally hit the thing, the time scroll, the time thing. I forget where I was. Let's see. Maybe it was about here.
To the observer to remain the same is a bit peculiar. I will show you the.
Wait.
It passed under the shadow. Of course, we also had to.
Dag nabbit. Will somebody tell me? Somebody in the chat, please let me know where the video was at before I accidentally hit the time, the scroll bar for the time. I'm going to go into my actual Hangout and see wherever it is that I did that. I have to go back in time. Let's see. So, where were they? Let me see, I might have it. No. I'm looking in the chat. You can take two different triangles, combine them into an invented triangle, and yeah, you can just do that. Right, never mind. Right, 237. Is it? No, it can't be. Can't have been a 237. It's definitely more. Will we be going live again to talk about this on Red's channel when you're done here? Are you willing to join us on the panel? Sure. 2131. Thank you very much, Gleam. 2131. So, here we go.
Alright, more garbage.
Loki, come on. The next part, I'm going to just jump ahead and show what happens to the footage. Now, what happens to the footage is not... Turn the audio down. What happens to the footage is not the glitch. There's two huge glitches with this. Okay.
Glitches,
So
he says.
the rest of the footage from just after halfway is this. This is apparently this is the ISS. Yeah, you might think, well, that's very freaky for the ISS, for an astronomer capturing it. What the heck's wrong with his equipment?
Drink. Okay. Hang on. Astronomy Live. We're going.
He's now going to explain what was wrong with his equipment. Listen, because you see, if there's something actually wrong with the equipment, that's a pretty valid answer. What he's going to say is not really. But let's listen to it.
No. We're settling this like men. Heads or tails?
Heads.
It's heads. You win. Okay, go.
So first of all, nothing's wrong with my equipment. It's trying to track an object traveling 17,500 miles an hour, about 400 kilometers overhead, and...
It's tracking something going how many degrees per minute? The speed is absolutely irrelevant. But let's continue.
As it gets higher, its angular size and angular speed both increase, which means the motors have to turn faster, which means there's more vibrations. And I did make one mistake. I had the camera set to 1/30th of a second to expose the solar panels as well as possible to see that nice amber color in the solar panels because it's really pretty. And I guess that's more of a decision than a mistake, but it leads to a downside, which is that the camera is operating fairly slowly. So every little vibration of those motors is picked up and it blurs the station. If I had a much faster exposure set with a much higher ISO, then you wouldn't overexpose the center of the station. You wouldn't see as much color in the panels. You wouldn't see nearly as much color in the panels. But you would have a more stable image, especially once the image is stabilized by my software in post, which is what he's viewing there, is the post-processed video where it's stabilized. But because the exposure was just 1/30th of a second, the vibrations from the motors cause the station to blur, especially as it gets higher and faster.
Yep, and just to confirm, you said that the issue here is, once again, you're looking at an object traveling 17,500 miles an hour at 260 miles plus in altitude.
And to put that in perspective for people, when it reaches its zenith, when it's overhead and it's traveling that fast, it's traveling through the sky at a little more than a degree per second, which is about twice the width of the moon in 1 second. So if you're looking at the moon in your telescope, and the moon is filling your whole eyepiece, but you're not even zooming into individual craters, the ISS will transit the moon in half a second. Boom, done. So it's traveling very quickly.
And I also have to throw out a little bit of my own shade on Antonio here, because...
Sorry, just need to interrupt for a second. 82 Productions. Yes, I did say that I would join Red on his Hangout. I've changed my mind, though. Red is welcome to join me on mine. See, I won't be pulling my Hangout. Last time I went on his, he pulled the Hangout. Tell him he's welcome to join me on this one. Ask him to send me an email. He has my address.
He used the stabilized footage, but he didn't use the live stream footage, because if he had gone to live stream footage and listened to the audio there, guess what you will hear? You will hear us talking about adjusting the exposure, adjusting the focus, and therefore we're actually putting hands on the rig that is doing the recording.
Did you hear that? Putting hands on the rig that is doing the recording. In other words, what Astronomy Life just said regarding how it accelerates as its angle respective to the camera changes. Yeah, that part. Oh no, never mind that. We're shoving it around. That's what. Just prodding it and shit.
Hang on, Astronomy Live, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we actually touch the camera or touch the focus knob, that's going to introduce some vibration, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I just also want to point out that the reason I'm able to turn my attention to things like, hey, let's tweak the focus a bit, is because the tracking itself is beautifully hands-free. I didn't adjust the tracking at all. That is entirely my software operating there, tracking the space station based on its orbit, and then looking.
It would have been absolutely fantastic if somebody hadn't been prodding it with their fingers. That would be really good. But oh, you had someone prod it with their fingers. Interesting.
At the video viewfinder sitting on top of the telescope and saying, okay, I see the bright light that is the space station, and I need to adjust it a little bit to keep it in the center of the camera. And as it gets higher and higher, it's moving faster and faster. It actually started to have trouble keeping up with it because the station's moving so fast. You even called that out in the live stream, like, hey, the telescope's starting to have a little bit of trouble here just keeping up with the space station. Part of that, as I realized afterwards, was due to the fact that it got so bright. When it was first rising, it's fairly dim, and we saw that in the live stream again.
Yes.
When I had the camera set up initially, you couldn't even see the space station.
Yes.
You couldn't see it at all. But all I had to do...
Now's a good time to go to their live stream, which I think was this one. And we'll watch this all the way through. Okay? I'm going to mute it just to infuriate Red, who says that he was saying, oh, the panels laid on to us or something like that. He meant right angles. So I'm going to play this from here. Here you are. Nice and easy. I'm going to go to the toilet too. Red, you're welcome to join me on this very hangout. Just you Okay, just you. We're not dancing anymore. Just having a nice little chit chat. Just you. Do you have the balls? You have the courage? Now, this that we're seeing right now is Venus. That's right. Yeah, that's Venus. Filmed by an astronomer, not by a flat earther with a P900 or a P1000. No, no, no. That's Venus recorded by an astronomer. It's wonderful. You might notice the blue shift on the top and the red shift at the bottom. Oh, what did he just say? I said you might notice the blue shift at the top and the red shift at the bottom. Oh no! What does that do to your theory? You can see it right there, can't you? Yes, you can. Why is that? Because, that's your answer, isn't it? That's right. Blue at the top, red at the bottom. Oh no, but that means going away and coming towards at the same time. Ugh. So I'm gonna jump ahead. Oh no, I'll carry on playing it. You guys enjoy it. Actually, I will play it with the audio. No, I won't play it with the audio because I have a really high-pitched sound that would be annoying to some people. If you want to watch it yourselves, go and watch it. Now, we'll go to the bathroom and notice that Rhetoric has not accepted my invite in the chat. He's watching, staying very quiet. And there's a creepy, slimy guy. He can go away. I've just banned a creepy, slimy guy. You don't want to know what he's known as in his area. Anyway, I'm gonna go to the toilet. Carry on enjoying this footage. Okay. Tell him to send the link to you, and you will pass it on. 82 writes to at the Book of the Sun from Reds. Tell him to send the link to you, and you will pass it on. No, Red. You send me an email, I will pass it to you. You join on your own. You're safe. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the toilet. Back in a minute. Enjoy the footage of the red shift, blue shift Venus. I'm back. Okay, what's the footage showing? Oh, just black. Let's move ahead to the ISS. Something interesting happens with this footage of the ISS. I'm going to move ahead to where it happens. Which is very peculiar. It's just like, just very strange. Wait. not here. It might be with the other footage. Yeah, see this? The ISS just moving around, darting around the screen. Yeah, that's because they're fiddling with the equipment. That's right. That's what's happening. Huh. It's interesting. That. Okay, so enough of that. I can close that. Oh, how does GPS work? That's to fish slap one of Red's listeners. Is it here? Yes, here it is. Okay, let's watch this footage. Oh, what happened there? Maybe it went out of the frame. Oh, yeah. So it must have gone out of the frame at the top and then went out of the frame at the bottom. So watch. Oh, okay. And out of the frame at the top and out of the frame at the bottom. Wonderful. Absolutely fantastic footage from an astronomer. Unfortunately, if you go to 270 at the azimuth, okay, look at the azimuth, that's 257. Gonna move ahead 10 seconds, 262, 269, and moving very slowly to get to 270. There's 270. Oh, can't see much. Let's move 1 second at a time. Huh. It looks like this thing hasn't actually moved like, well, the 3D world demands. See, panel on the left higher than panel on the right. Let's see how it started off. Panel on the left higher than panel on the right. That's interesting. That's a point where it's 90 degrees from south. Okay, so it appeared somewhere to the southwest. It moved up. Now it's, well, 270. It's like, okay, at which point do we see it side on? Huh, that's interesting. There, okay, so enough of that. Oh, I'm going to say this more quietly because I've got my daughter going to bed. She's at college, taking her. So I'm going to talk more quietly. But let's continue listening to Red and his gaggle. Oops.
Dude, all I had to do was turn up the exposure, and then boom, it was already in the view. It was there the whole time. You just couldn't see it because the exposure was too fast. As it got higher, it also got closer and it got brighter. It also got brighter for the viewfinder camera. It started out as a faint, well, not even a faint, but a pretty steady star, just a few pixels wide, when I clicked on it initially to start the optical tracking. By the time it was high overhead, it was now a giant ball in the viewfinder camera, and it was actually a little bit too large, really, too bright. I should have stopped down the iris a little bit on the viewfinder camera so that it was a finer point of light, because the viewfinder camera was actually having trouble determining.
Oh, that's very boring. Why don't you tell us about how you made your own tracker, because you can't rely on any other trackers that are online, even the ESA tracker. But let's jump ahead 10 seconds.
Brightness. It is so
He's still
incredibly
talking.
bright
Let's jump
that when
10
it's high
more.
overhead, iris a bit, it would
And he's still talking. Let's jump ahead
have had
10
an easier
more.
time.
I want to point out that it's amazing how many details one could gather by simply looking at the live stream. But it seems to me that Antonio purposefully ignored the live stream of this up.
Another thing that happens with people with the Dunning-Kruger effect is they just assume that whatever it is that they think is right because they think it. So Rhetoric assumes that, one, I knew that there was some live footage somewhere, and two, that I watched it and ignored it. Like, no, I watched it today and I've shown, thanks to you, Rhetoric, your friend's fraud. Here, I will show it again right now. I know you're watching. Thanks for watching. I'm going to shift windows and you'll see exactly what I mean by the fraud, like literal fraud. Oh dear. War dance party. Here you are. Now, what's this? This is the hangout you're actually watching. Okay, can you see? Right. Now, I love saying that for where's Willie? Now I'm going to the Hangout and I'm going all the way back to the beginning and I'm going to play it with audio. Enjoy. Wait, I'll skip past the singing, the music, from the Trailer Park Boys, skip the intro. Let's watch your pal's fraud. Let's go.
Now, if you think that you might be mistaken sometimes, like your tell you what, I will,
Let's jump ahead.
that's not very
Let's jump ahead.
First, we're going to start with a crippling move. So, let me move this window away. Greetings everybody in the chat, nice to see you. First, we're going to start off with a windmill ending with a head spin, okay? Finished, you don't top that. Thank you. Now, so, watch what I'm going to show. I'm going to show, first of all, oops, that wasn't supposed to happen. First of all, this, which is part of what I showed in the last video. This is Rhetoric tracking the International Space Station stabilized. I'm just going to hop ahead. You can keep your mind or your eye on the azimuth if you like, but I'm just going to jump ahead and we'll see how the orientation of the ISS does not change for a long period. It distorts, doesn't quite change. Now, Rhetoric insists, one, that I watched his live hangout and refused to mention it, which isn't true because I didn't know he had a live hangout. And two, that having watched the live hangout, I purposefully didn't mention it to hide things. It's like, no, silly. In fact, I'm going to show it now to show the fraud of astronomy live. That's right. Pay attention to the so-called solar panels, okay, which somehow remain illuminated. Now they're receiving light, but when it's gone past that halfway point at 270, they're still receiving, oh, that's interesting, shouldn't the light be on the other side of the panels? Never mind, they're probably transparent. Now, notice how the panel on the left is higher than the panel on the right. Panel on the left, higher than the panel on the right. It's all the way through, panel on the left, higher than panel on the right. Past the point of 270 azimuth, which is directly west, where the thing should be sideways onto the observer, but no, it doesn't. No, panel to the left higher than panel to the right. Okay, now let's go to the actual live tracking, which he was so annoyed that I hadn't watched or wasn't mentioning. Now, he's convinced that I watched it, and then a complete fraud, a complete dishonest fraud. Oh, by the way, I should say, Rhetoric's War Dance Party was a fundraiser for Sean Hufford, the e-beggar, the Globling e-beggar, that guy. Yeah, they're begging for him, for some money, for him, just. Okay, so, a Dan Pratt style begging. You know, he needs to move, he needs money, please give him money. Okay, so again, this is from the live feed, okay? It happened November 20th. We will dissect this later. There is no, on the top of the screen, as you can see, I don't think I'm showing my cursor, but never mind. On the top left, you see there's no data being displayed there. But I'm going to move across. Panel on the left, higher than panel on the right. Okay, that's the main point. Panel on the left, higher than panel on the right. All of the time. In my hangout, criticizing this, I pointed out that they should bring some rotation to the image. Now, this is the dance party. The ISS Antonius will be that glitch, isosceles, not equilateral. That's right. We'll go into this isosceles, not equilateral soon. This is what I'm referring to. This was their dance party. Now, I mentioned in it, and I'm going to play a large chunk of it. A lot of this hangout is going to be me pausing his hangout and correcting them. and explaining to them, and sometimes agreeing with them. Okay? Now, I pointed out that there should be rotation on 2 axes. Whilst they're on this hangout, Astronomy Live, who's an astronomer, has been tweaking his footage, which is the footage you're looking at right now. This is tweaked footage. The azimuth is the same in the top left. You'll see that the azimuth corresponds to the footage we were just looking at, which I think was this one. Yeah. It corresponds to this footage. However, the panel on the left is higher than the panel on the right. Which panel is higher here? It's the one on the right, not the one on the left. Let's move ahead. I'm just moving ahead slowly. Interesting. It's almost like this footage, which has the panel, let me go back. Pause. The panel on the left is lower. You'll see when it kicks over. I'm just going to play the footage. Oh, what's going on here? The panel on the left is lower than the panel on the right. So this was footage that he corrected whilst on this hangout. Obviously he was distracted by the hangout and trying to make his footage correspond to my drawings of the motion. This is the real footage. This is the let's adjust things so that you can see more rotation. Unfortunately, I think he just flipped the footage, I don't know, but it shows manipulation because he flipped the footage and took the data on the top left. So he separated the masks, the layers, fiddled with the footage, re-put the layers together so he could show it. Watch. Starts off, panel on the left, lower than panel on the right. Let's look at the original footage. Oh no! Panel on the left, higher than panel on the right. Fraud. This means fraud. Literally, this is image manipulation. That's a very bad move when the discussion is about the ISS. To go into your footage and tweak it and manipulate it, and by mistake, because you're busy on this hangout, mess up and flip it. Can you see? This is the manipulated footage. Panel on the left is lower. This is the original footage. Panel on the right is higher. This is the footage that I critiqued.
I meant to say panel on the right lower.
Panel on the left is higher. Panel on the left is higher. These are original footage, okay? This is the part of what I critiqued. This is part of the live footage. Panel on the left, higher. This is the manipulated footage. I'm going to play it. Oh dear. Oh dear. He flipped and got it wrong. Good gosh. It's almost like he doesn't understand the 3D world quite so well. Before I go any further, I'm going to explain what should...
There you go. You're welcome, Rhetoric. Okay? Okay. Now I can remove this window. Just make it smaller, get rid. Oh, you poor dumbasses. Let's go back. Oh, that's weird. Oh yeah, no, that's history. Let's continue.
Observation. And in the live stream, you can actually hear our communication back and forth. And we did call out that, hey, we need to step up the exposure because we're not seeing it. Hey, let's adjust the focus. Let's adjust the exposure again while it is actively tracking. So that's going to introduce some vibration and stuff like that. And you know what? Some of it, does lead to slightly shaky footage and stuff like that. But, and this is the biggest one. I would very much like Antonio to do a better job than us.
Especially while live streaming. Especially because as people who've watched my channel for a while know, I've put up a number of videos of ISS, and I would argue the one we filmed, although it was a lot of fun, it's not my best video of ISS. You know why? Because it's really hard to run a live stream and narrate and do all of that while tracking the space station, even when the computer is doing all the work of actually doing the tracking. Just keeping track of the focus, keeping track of the exposure, that's a full-time job right there. And when your brain is working at 1,000,000 miles an hour trying to narrate and tell people what's going on in the space station and track...
I just moved the thing again. When you're doing a live feed and all of this, then you get distracted and you might flip the image. Ooh. Right. Dagnabbit, where was I then? Because I just hit the freaking thing again. Oh, I will watch on the screen.
More garbage, please.
Behaving like a real 3D object. But the azimuth, there's a problem with the azimuth. Now it's at 247. We zoom in. 242. We started at 234. Here,
Okay,
and it's around 234.
158, that's where it was, I just saw. 158, I think we were at 158. No, what the heck? Sorry, guys. No.
If I got it.
This is what happens when you live stream on your own and accidentally hit the scroll bar when you need to just jump onto the window. Gleam, if you're there, can you tell me where we're at?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm going to just try and guess. Whilst I wait, I'm going to go back to this, which is the point they should have gone over more and more, you know, because this is what I got definitely wrong. So I'm going to play it just so I don't get accused of cherry picking and whitewashing. No, I'm going to play this so people see where I got it wrong. That's right.
Absolutely.
Next thing you know, he'll be fucking saying ISS is Polaris, facing south.
Oh dear, it looks like it's...
Haha, very funny. Polaris facing south. I'm looking on the chat to see if anybody can find where we were, but meantime, here, let's look at this. Oh, no. I will go back. I will keep it in sequence.
It's Polaris. Alright.
Very good screen.
Astronomy Live, you are now screen sharing.
So, this is actually the same pass that we filmed. This is using the same orbital elements that we used to track the ISS as we filmed. So, this is looking back on November 20th at about 6:33, just a couple minutes before I started tracking. This is where ISS hit the horizon. The red circle represents everything that has line of sight to ISS from the surface of the Earth. So everything inside the red circle and everyone inside the red circle can theoretically see the space station at that moment. The red plus sign in Florida is where we were standing as we were filming it, and you can see ISS getting closer and closer to that point. The orbital path is traced across the globe of the Earth there. You can see the thick, sort of slightly yellow section is where ISS is in daylight and has line of sight to us observing it. And you can see that if you watch this, if you were to trace a line and measure the azimuth, it's getting further and further north from our perspective, from that plus sign.
That's right. So what he just said is right. It's getting further and further north, which means increasing in the azimuth.
It's traveling north. It's also traveling east, northeast. So, yes, the azimuth will appear to increase from 230-something degrees to 240-something degrees, so on and so forth. It'll continue to increase over time. It does not follow the path that he showed on mooncalc.org. It follows its own path, its own orbit.
uncalc.org was only to illustrate. It was my mistake, and it was a clumsy mistake. The reason for the mistake was seeing the trackers and the path that they were showing, but that path scrolls around the globe, and it was it was an amateurish mistake, and I own up to it. Yeah, my bad. Spank me.
Around the Earth. And again, this is using the orbital elements that we actually use to track it, which were accurate to within a degree or two. As I said, it was a little bit behind the predicted position, not much, enough that it was noticeable to the telescope, but this is roughly correct. You can see how the azimuth would be increasing here. I don't want to show the actual numbers from this program because that shows our actual physical location at that time, but you can see just based on this map, the azimuth ought to be increasing.
Interesting.
Elevation.
So what you're saying here is that Antonio Superats was comparing apples to oranges and then complaining that his apple didn't taste like an orange.
Yes.
Interesting.
But that's the azimuth, not the Asimov. It looks like a 1964 Atari 64 fucking game console screen.
Yeah, it's a basic Java.
But it illustrates the point. It illustrates the point actually beautifully. So Antonio, there you go. Your answer. So with that, I'm now going.
Now with that, I'm going to screen share. Just because it's interesting. 1 second. Display capture. There we go. Okay. What's this? It's Google Earth. Where's it set from? Florida. Can you see that? Florida. Whoops. Come on. Okay, whenever it chooses to start responding. Okay, there. Now, let's zoom in. I've just dropped a pin in Florida. That's all I've done. Okay. Time, 11:59 p.m. That's their time. That's the time. Oh, that's the day before. It was the 20th. There. 20th. Let's go to. 12:50. No, 11:59. Sorry. There you go. 11:59. That's the day we're talking about. They're looking in this direction. Should we see where the sun is? Let's pan out. Now let's look at this. This, by the way, this program I'm showing right now. Let me get rid of the grid. Is also not for educational purposes. Okay, you know how physical globes are not for educational purposes. Well, this is also not for educational purposes, for illustration only. Okay, so there's the sun. Wonderful. You might think, well, the sky was very black, considering that that's the sun. They're looking, let me grab a rule. They're looking, and I'm going to do it from approximately here. I think this is their location. They're looking in this direction at 2:34 when they start the observation. They're looking in this direction. And they go, well, this way, as the ISS is transiting in this direction. And the azimuth is going up, is rising. Yeah, very good. Got it. At which point is the ISS going to show you a different facade? Didn't seem to. But anyway, my question is, how is the sun illuminating it? We've said this many times, we flat earthers. How is the sun illuminating the ISS? Now, I've shown this before. Let me get rid of this. If you take this globe and you look at how much is illuminated, you see that it's rather more than half. Okay? Now, I'm going to just drop a line just like this. Wait. Like so. Wait a minute. Okay, there. That would be half. The Earth is illuminated 50.02%. Okay, not all of this extra. Oh no, I suppose the atmosphere to something that would be, well, a ½ millimeter away from this. This is not a beach ball like Neil deGrasse Tyson was showing. This is a much smaller ball. Okay, so, that's interesting. Why would the Earth have this margin here? Now you can see clear. Okay, I'm going to draw. This is the illuminated portion of this Earth. What's wrong with this picture? That's rather a lot more than 50.02%, is it not? Can you see? From here to here versus from here to here. Oops! It's, well, fudging. It's called fudging. Now let's go back to their hangout. Let me stop screen sharing this. Show the other one. Oh. Okay, did I show that? I hope I just showed that. Wait. Yes, I did. Kind of. Close this. Get rid of this. Sorry, folks. Right, remove it altogether. There. Let's go back.
Going to screen share back over to 82. More garbage, please.
Do it again. I'm going to go back to 34. This is when the
Fred Knott's right. I don't know if that's bisect can mean bisecting the angle equally, which is what Red did. So you are wrong. No, silly dim dim. That's not what he did. Here. You see, because globe links are so dim and so predictable, this would be bisecting the angle equally. Do you see? Which of Red's triangles looked like this? This would be bisecting the angle equally. Okay? It looks slightly off because I drew it with a marker quickly. Which of Red's triangle is this kind of triangle? So no, Fred Knott, you are wrong. Deal with it. You'll survive.
footage starts, and 2 minutes later, the ISS is, what's the
Not
direction?
Polaris. Not Polaris.
Not Polaris.
Or the moon.
There's a problem. You see, the ISS trackers have it moving.
I'm going to jump ahead past the ISS trackers because they struggled with them and they just waffled a bit. So,
Towards the right.
James Truth is absolutely. Let's go.
I guess this is closer to the red. That means when my track
Radical.
there they're just clutching at straws as to why all of the trackers are tracking the ISS at different locations. And they catch themselves a couple of times and go "Ugh," when they see it actually render, and what they see the one on the trackers is the ESA. So let me jump ahead.
This way. That's moving to the east. But you see, the azimuth is going down. So let me start again at 234. I'm going to start scrolling to the east. As if that blue ball, blue circle, was the ISS. Going.
The azimuth has nothing to do with the altitude.
That's the guy for whom they're collecting funds, Sean Hufford, who accused yours truly of having distorted elements used in a photograph that debunked their globe fantasy, was corrected himself by Globelings, who did a contrast image analysis And so no, he's not cropped anything. Antonio has not done what you're accusing him of. He did not make a public apology. That's who just spoke. What he said was, elevation has nothing to do with Asimov. Nobody said it did, Sean Hofford. I'm going to play it again.
Blue ball? Blue circle? What's the ISS? Going
The azimuth has nothing to do with the altitude.
The azimuth has nothing to do with the altitude. That's right. Why are you saying that? Did somebody say it did?
Oh my god, we know that, Sean.
Well, he's saying it's down, so it definitely must be like trying to nosedive into the Earth. Come on now.
So,
I don't know why they're now talking about elevation, because I didn't say anything about elevation, but let's continue.
okay. Alright, so
Watch out,
basically,
Everest.
so basically the ISS is now doing a swan dive.
Everest is, they're going to have fucking problems when it comes up to Everest. They're going to be yelling that shit when they go over India.
Oh man, I swear. But, let's go ahead and try this. I was able to find a bit of an image here, so let me see if I can find it. Alright, so, you know what, in the meantime...
Let me point out something. Globermon, right, so Thomas Gron, did you see how close the Terminator line was? Globermon, did you see how skewed that Terminator was? Did you see how far beyond 50% of the globe it was? Did you see? I highlighted it. I went out of my way to show that. Did you see it or did you miss it, Globermon?
It doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and do more garbage while I bring this image up.
to the east, which is to the right on the screen. Oh, the azimuth is dropping, not going up. Oops, daisies. That's a problem. I suppose.
See, this is what they should have just focused on, because this is where I was wrong.
Astronomers use inverted azimuth when they need to, because the world doesn't actually correspond to the real world, so they just, we invert it. Okay.
What?
Well, where is the...
Guys, a serious question here. Do you think he actually knows what azimuth means?
No.
Says the man who couldn't answer the question about bisecting triangles. Ooh, interesting.
I bet he'd be
But don't worry, I will fish slap him some more. Coming up soon.
confused as fuck if you said, okay, now look south. Is it still going to the right or to the left? And just hear the hamster just spin away.
I don't think he understands that, although ISS it was moving to the east, but it was going to pass us to the north side of us. I don't think he understands that objects can pass you traveling northeast. They can pass further south than you, or they can pass further north than you.
That's right.
So I mean, like, you could have ended that at, I don't think he understands.
Well, okay, fair.
I understand triangles. The flat earth.
Point.
Yeah,
Could end it in a hamster.
seriously. I mean, at that point, Astronomy Live, you're just giving him way too much credit.
How do these people get through a day without accidentally stabbing themselves in the eye with their own forks or something?
You know,
Don't.
it's just...
Is he taking the mickey out of actually developmentally retarded people? That's not nice, dude. Not for a crippled fella like you. I mean, you should have a bit more common sense, dude. But let's continue.
I don't know. I just don't know. I wish
They
I
wear
did.
protective eyewear. They wear protective eyewear like
Is that what it is?
a welding shield.
No, again, you are assuming they feed themselves and use utensils.
I am making that assumption. You're
You
right.
guys are all
Oh, I have to address Chef Alan. How disrespectful is this guy? Referring to me. People are waiting at Red's channel. The time will have been arranged. Okay, Chef Alan. Red started that hangout, panicking that I was doing mine. Do you understand? There was no arrangement made with me. He asked me to join his hangout. I said yes. Then I said, wait, no, you join this hangout instead. Why? Because last time I joined his hangout, him and Astronomy Live, the hangout immediately disappeared afterwards. Do you understand, Chef Alan? Red is welcome to join me on this hangout. He can then take this hangout and put it on his channel, or he can cut it into pieces and put pieces on his channel. That's perfectly fine with me. But I'm not wasting time on a hangout that's going to immediately disappear the minute he realizes that he looks like a dumbass, confusing the types of triangles he's supposed to be discussing. Do you understand, Chef Alan? Let's continue.
Assuming that they shower and wash the green eye boogers off of their face and have not formed a green eye booger shield that protects them from their silverware while they eat.
Well, we've all seen Natalie Thompson. We know she doesn't shower.
Oh fuck yeah! That dude, when he took off his hat, you notice his hair just fucking stays fixed, fucking flat down. That dude doesn't wash his hair in God knows how long.
Well, what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to go ahead and while this is playing, I'm going to go ahead and share a live view of Antonio's brain. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. All right, there it goes. Perfect. All right, so that is a live view of Antonio's brain. So yeah, as you can see, it's not quite firing on all cylinders there. Although they're trying really fucking hard, but it's just, I mean, A for effort.
Chef Alan writes at the Book of the Sun, "Sorry mate, could you say all that again please? I just heard mouth farting." Oh, okay. Red's Rhetoric started his hangout as a response to this one because he's panicking. He's panicking because I showed that his pal tweaked the footage. He invited me. I said yes. Then I said no, actually no, because last time I joined his hangout, he immediately pulled it afterwards. Did that sound like mouth farting to you again?
I mean, that's the same thing that Paris made in Scotland.
I believe it.
So when we're talking about Antonio's brain, not quite firing on all cylinders there, buddy. So you know how it is.
I'll just have to say, even that hamster is smarter than Antonia at this point.
The hamster's droppings are smarter than that too.
I just have to say, Red's Rhetoric has a very fake laugh. Just listen to how he laughs when something isn't actually funny and he's just laughing to be polite.
Alright, more garbage.
ISS. Right now, that's where it is according to this tracker. Oh, it's off the coast of Australia. It's north of Perth here. Let's see the previous one.
Fatal Gravity writes, Red's panicking? No, you're just a pussy. Hey, Fatal Fatality, Fatal Gravity, whatever you call it. Before Reds went live, I invited him to join this hangout.
It's nowhere near Perth yet. Remember, it's the green dash is the ISS.
Alright, pause it real
Nowhere
quick.
near Australia. Well,
Okay, so trackers vary. Okay, that's fine. What does this have to do with our footage? Just throwing that out there. Alright.
I think obviously my tracker worked okay.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, does he show the address for the trackers? Maybe they have like a fucking disclaimer in there somewhere saying this isn't.
I'm not going to play all of it, but it's very funny that later they find one of the places with the trackers, they read the blurb, and it's all saying this is all legit. That's on the back of this guy saying, do they have some kind of disclaimer as in this isn't accurate or something? It's very funny.
Actually accurate or some shit.
Nah, he, as you can see, this is like super cropped in where it's even cropping out some advertisement.
Yes, to crop out the advertisement, so people can see it more clearly.
Gotcha.
Alright, more garbage.
1,000 miles away from Australia, give or take. No, this one, no. It's now technically over Australia. That's interesting. Let's look at the third.
I'm going to jump ahead. It was a bit boring.
Also, nowhere near Australia. That's
It's almost the same spot as the other one. Not that one, but the other one.
I genuinely have issues believing that's his real voice.
Says that guy. Okay, let's continue.
That's his real
It's like
voice.
a chipmunk has been punched in the throat.
It's been raped in the throat.
There goes the fake laugh again.
God Martin from somewhere.
Australia.
Oh, you got
Not
that right.
Australia. ISS being tracked
I bet you know
live.
it.
For those people
Garrett.
who want to go out,
Go ahead, guys. You.
I was just going to say, I guarantee if you go to any one of those sites, there's probably a disclaimer that says this is probably not accurate or some shit like that. He's just not going to read.
Yep. And before we continue on with more of this garbage, I do want to thank those of you who are or who have donated to Sean Hufford's PayPal.
Because that was an e-begging hangout. But let's continue.
A little bit helps for my mods in the live chat if you all can spam the dumpster fire that is Antonio's brain. All right, more garbage.
Where's Wally says that Stockport, which is where Antonio is at 53 degrees north, and the ISS never goes above 51, I believe. So he said it was north of him. He's lying. I guess that's what he's trying to say.
Yeah. All right, more garbage.
and video.
Okay, just to address the chat. So, in the chat, there are Red's Bum Boys asking me to join his hangout. This hangout started first. I asked him to join. I invited him to join this one. It would just be him and me. For some reason, he'd rather I join his hangout, which he can then delete immediately afterwards. No thanks. He's welcome to join here. More than welcome.
The ISS. So there are people now in Asia who could go out and video the ISS. But there are also people now in Australia who could go out and video the ISS. That's interesting. Let's see the third one again.
Oh, let's move ahead.
And again,
Information including location and elevation angle above the surface of the Earth.
They're just struggling to justify why the three different trackers I was showing showed the ISS in three different locations. Astronomy Live himself says that when he was tracking it, it wasn't in the location that his tracker predicted it to be at. The tracker that he, as an astronomer, was using was just slightly off. It's like, it's interesting.
Earth.
Now, so I'm going to go outside and take my...
Tracker program.
it depends what tracker you use on
It's
whether
like he's not
the ISS.
Red. I just while all this garbage is going on. Oh man,
Question about the software real fast. Hey, keep moving to the left regardless.
it does predict in a way.
It does predict in a way, vaguely. So, oh, that's very precise for space agencies.
If you don't do that very carefully, it's kind of it remembers what it did last.
These guys are just they're just waffling, trying to find a reason why the three trackers are showing the ISS in different locations.
time, and so it keeps
Anticipate, say, the next...
very quickly result in oscillation. I'm still working out how to do that properly.
Oh, one of the guys says the reason this one stopped in Europe, the next orbit stops at Europe, is that if they plotted all of the orbits forever, you would just have a great big splodge of colour. Like, yes, stupid. The other ones tracked it farther. You understand? But never mind.
But I've been playing with it, but it's mostly
Actually is. It's not also...
Trackers vary sometimes. What does this have to do with our footage?
For some reason, me calling it ISS glitch makes Red think that it was exclusively about his footage. No, this is a glitch. The ISS being in multiple locations is a glitch.
Obviously, the tracker that we used fucking worked.
No, the tracker that you used was off too. Astronomy Live said as much.
So what is this glitch?
Your answer, dude.
On Edison.
Exactly. I'm going to address the rotation of the ISS. How it would start with the panels kind of broadside to us and then would become knife edge to us. He said that didn't happen, even though it clearly fucking did, because I called it out in the live stream.
Now, what he just referred to, whilst that hangout was on, Astronomy Live was tweaking his footage. That's where he flipped the footage by mistake. That's called manipulation.
What was that point?
Yeah.
Did we run away from that point that he was trying to build? That there was supposed to be, like the orientation relative to us was supposed to change. That point just kind of get lost, and now we're talking about fucking trackers and shit.
Yeah. Hey, Reds, I'm gonna drop out because it's really late / early for me here.
Twitter.
Yeah, fucking pansy. All right, get the fuck out of here.
Thanks, guys. I'll speak to you later.
Peace.
Bye.
Good night.
All right.
Now wait, I'm going to find something. I'm at 1:15. Okay, I'm going to go back and find something and make a comment about tracking the ISS beyond the layer of compression. I'll find it. I want to fish slap the flat Earth.
Oh dear. It looks like it's a bit further west on the second ISS. Let's look at what's this? Oh, and here it's interesting. We're just comparing 3 ISS trackers, live ISS trackers, and none of them match. The 3 of them have the ISS in a different location. Now, obviously, the people going through cognitive dissonance will be saying,
Okay.
"Where?"
Yep. Go ahead.
So, first of all, he's okay. So I've already seen this little bit. I'll wait for him to make his next faux pas. Go ahead and play a few more seconds.
Because the website doesn't know your location.
Wait.
Then do us all a favor and shut the fuck up. Okay? Okay, perfect. All right, so 82 Productions, more garbage, please.
Anyway, so this is Rhetoric, and to be fair, it comes from Astronomy Live. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to play a portion of it. I'm not going to play all of it because we don't need to. I want you to pay special attention to this, okay? The azimuth here, 234 degrees, okay? The footage starts with the azimuth at 234 degrees. That means with the north behind you and the south in front of you, 234 would be to your right and north, okay? Just slightly to the north.
Can I call a drink there?
Okay, yep, drink. Okay, so drink has been called.
I'm jumping here.
Oh, thank you, dude. Right,
He has...
now,
Wait a minute. He has a single solitary patron.
I mean, I'm concerned about the fact he has any patrons. People pay money to him.
For this garbage, but I mean...
Even the mentally limited need assistance from time to time.
Makes sense.
Okay. Fair enough. Alright, more garbage.
what is this? Where am I? Here. Okay. What we're looking at, for educational purposes,
Of course.
is Rhetoric's streaming of footage captured by a gentleman I had a debate with, along with Rhetoric, regarding triangles and how they didn't really understand. You can't just join 2 different triangles or make a 3rd triangle out of it. All of that.
Wait.
That
Did
pause.
you just say that you guys didn't understand triangles?
Yeah, he apparently...
Oh, the irony.
Yeah, he apparently thinks that we bolted triangles together. That's... I mean, what? No, that's...
The reason I'm playing this is I'm looking for a part where I discuss the compression layer and the flat Earth protests.
not how any of this works. Nothing of what he said is actually comporting with reality of how we actually did our observation when it came to deriving the altitude of the space station.
Well, here's a question. What happens when you bisect a triangle?
You bisect a triangle. Anyone else want to go ahead and take that? Because I got some images that I'm going to bring up in a moment. Alright, images are coming up.
Silence.
Alright, so let's see.
No one wants to take the softball. When you bisect one triangle, you end up making two triangles.
You make, if you
Okay. Dagnabbit, I'm trying to find this place. I didn't leave myself a marker. Okay, back to here. Apologies for this messing around.
I want you to pay special attention to this, okay? The azimuth here, 234 degrees, okay? The footage starts with the azimuth at 234 degrees. That means with the north behind you and the south in front of you, 230
has been called,
Due south.
so if you're right, and
You're right. If you
would be
Sorry.
able to fuck it up.
to jump to the point where this footage goes very, very you might start to see the problem.
No, I don't see a problem here.
Start to see the problem. And the next.
Hang on, drink.
If Reds is watching this, you might start to see the problem.
No, I don't see a problem here.
Start to see the problem. And the next.
Hang on, drink. Okay, so let's go ahead and
Tequila.
Water, but one.
I'm going to just jump ahead. It's not apparently.
no.
So first.
Okay, I think it was when I started showing Mooncalc. Just a second, yes. I think I just remembered. Okay.
Around 234, yeah. Okay, here's Mooncalc, and this is just to help illustrate the azimuth.
Bearing in mind, this is what I got wrong, but let's listen.
So, it's now at 234. I'm now going to scroll to 242. Okay? Watch very carefully. 242.
Oh, come
Which
on.
way? Let's imagine that what's being tracked is the ISS.
Oh, good.
Did it move to the east or did it move to the west?
Okay, drink.
Okay. Go for it.
Seriously, loaded. What is this?
Oh, I can't find it. The point was this. I mentioned how they start tracking the ISS. Once it's gone beyond that compression layer, FAT, the flat Earth, says compression. So, basic principles of understanding atmospheric refraction phenomena. Compression. I will read this part twice, then I will read the rest, which is fascinating to hear. Okay. This is for FAT, the flat Earth, who doesn't understand compression. Because refraction refraction raises a small part of the sky just below the astronomical horizon into the part just above it, the image of this strip of sky, I said layer, now it's a strip of sky at the horizon is, on the average, compressed vertically. The appreciable compression is continued to a narrow band, so layer, that extends only 2 or 3 degrees above the astronomical horizon. As the refraction at the astronomical horizon is typically about half a degree, that means the usual compression is about 1/6 of the vertical size of an object at the horizon. This is, for example, about the normal flattening of the setting sun. See the standard atmosphere sunset simulation, for example. Okay, now it goes on. But when refraction is unusually large, a bigger zone of the sky that would normally have been below the horizon is crammed into this compressed region. Then the average flattening is greatly increased. The sun can flatten out into a thin line. Note that the average compression does not exclude a vertical expansion of some part of the image. If one part is expanded, other parts must be even more compressed to fit into the available image space. Alternating bands of compression and expansion produce the quasi-rectangular features of the Fata Morgana display that fool observers into thinking there are architectural features such as castles, aqueducts, and cities where no such things exist. So the Toronto skyline does not exist, apparently. Now let's go into this explanation regarding refraction. What is refraction? It's the bending of light. Jolly good. Now let's look at this diagram. Oh, interesting. We see at 0 an angle to something which is, well, the line to C is parallel with the horizon. That's interesting. Where is C? Very far away. Parallel with the horizon. That's right. What would be the degree between the horizon and the star at, say, I don't know, 10 million light years? Well, almost none. What does that mean? Well, that something that would be at the horizon would appear to be higher than the horizon. Oh, that's very interesting. Wonderful. Now let's consider C to be Polaris. Oh no, but if it's parallel with the horizon, which it is, and it looks like from 0, which would be the equator, it looks like it's at about 25 degrees or so. That's interesting. Does Polaris appear about 25 degrees or so from the equator? No, it doesn't really. But let's move down to here. Now you have 0. Let's call that the equator. Okay, 0 is the equator. This is where I said earlier that I would go on to things that the Globelings won't be able to, just take on board. They're just too much cognitive dissonance. So 0 is playing the role of the equator on the Earth. The red dot is an observer. The yellow line is the line of sight to Polaris. That's right, it would appear to be at the horizon. Just like that S above the yellow dot on the left would appear to be above the horizon, but oh, look at how the actual S, see how that line diverts with the refraction? Well, let's call that S Polaris, and let's extend that line 430 light years. That's right, let's extend the line S 430 light years. That's how long that line is. To Polaris, 434 light years. Or is it 444,000 light years? Very far away. Very good. Would that have Polaris above Earth's axis? Absolutely not. Of course not. That's a problem for the Globelings, and they cannot address it, so they do not. That's what Globelings do with their problems. Let me close that. Now, it gets to a point where they have a problem with the meaning of words in Dexical. So I'm going to move ahead. It was towards the end.
Red to figure out each one of these? Yeah.
Red.
Yeah.
The chat or the stream can't see what you're sharing.
Yes, they can now.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay. What we just heard was Reds absolutely convinced just now. Well, tell you what, I will go back and you'll see. Reds thinks that he's displaying triangles because he's going over his triangles. He's trying to rescue his triangles. He gets told that he's not displaying his triangles. He says, yes, I am now. And after having said that, then he displays his triangles, and we can see by the actions on the screen that he's just started to display. So watch.
4 6 kilometers away from this, so 6 degrees. So we had an observer here, and we have an observer here, and we cut the triangle right down the middle. That would mean that we get 0.0606 degrees. If we were to, if we were taking a look here, we would get this. 0.555 kilometers, 0.555 kilometers. This is if our visual triangle was split right down the middle. When we did this, we got 524.73 kilometers. This is not what Antonio thinks happened during the observation. He thinks what we formed was a scaling triangle. So like this. So you would have, like on Astronomy Live side, he would be 0.664 kilometers away from the transiting path.
Just to point out, hey, guy in the chat called GPS, don't worry, I'm going to embarrass you presently, okay? Just hold your horses. I would advise that you not argue with Gleam. Gleam runs circles around your teachers, your professors. That's right. Oopsies. But let's get back to Red, thinking he's displaying.
Path, and I would be 0.446 kilometers away from the transiting path, which would give us 2 different degree values for our right triangle. Fair enough. But when we actually do the math, to figure out each one of these,
Red.
Yeah.
The chat or the stream can't see what you're sharing.
Yes, they can now.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I fixed it. So, there we go. So anyway.
Did you see how he just said that he fixed it past tense and then went and fixed it? I'm going to play that again.
Stream can't see what you're sharing.
Yes, they can now.
Yes, they can now. No, they can't. You haven't executed the change yet, Dim Dim. Watch.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I fixed it.
I fixed it. Really? Let's see.
So, there we go.
So, there we go. Live. Which means now he fixed it. He mentioned having fixed it a couple of seconds ago. Oh no. What's that called? Could it be Dunning-Kruger? I don't want to say narcissist. I'll say Dunning-Kruger instead.
So anyway, as you can see here, so this was the first triangle that we were able to see. So here's the second triangle that Antonio thinks is going on. So once again, just so you all can see, where my mouse is, that's observer 1. Where the mouse is, that's observer 2. And as the lines continue.
Okay, so Justin Franks writes, it's called a streaming delay. No, not when the minute it starts to actually display, he says, there we go. Understand? Stop justifying, stop rationalizing.
This represents our line of sight, and you will see a separation within our transiting paths over the face of the moon. And so if we were to cut this triangle right down the middle, we would get 0.0606 degrees on both sides. Do the math, 0.555 kilometers over the tangent of 0.0606 degrees equals 524.73 kilometers. Antonio called foul on this because he said that this was actually what we were making, a scaling triangle, not an equilateral triangle. So,
you see how he just said, okay, he just said, again, equilateral triangle. He really hasn't properly learned it. Isosceles, that's the one you made up. This is equilateral. That's not the one you had. Okay. Do you understand? Am I getting through at all, Red?
Yeah. Basically, he says that from the transiting path, Astronomy Live would have been 0.664 kilometers away, and I would have been 0.446 kilometers away, which would have resulted in different degree values for our.
Let me just interrupt Red to address the chat again. 82 writes, it's really fascinating how you're giving Red a hard time for that when you are so woefully unprepared for most of your demonstrations in the videos we were reviewing. That's right, but I say oops and oh I need to. I don't say I fixed it already and then go and fix it. 82 Productions. Do you understand the difference?
Our right triangles here, which is fair, but when you do the math, guess what happens? 0.664 divided by the tangent of 0.0725, which is over here, 524.75 kilometers. Do the other side.
Well, Red.
Yeah.
It is 12:12 in the morning now, and I do have a lot of crap to do in the morning dealing with all this movie stuff.
That's Sean Hufford, who accused me of cheating the famous Mount Rainier and St. Helens photo that was impossible on the flat earth, and turned out no, actually it's impossible on the globe. Here it is on a flat surface. Okay, to scale, correct ratios to all. Okay, that's the guy that's just bailing. That's the one. That was a charity drive for him.
Alright, sounds like a plan. I will hit you back later.
Alright.
Alright, so.
Bye.
Good night. So, and then for the second triangle, 0.446 over the tangent of 0.0486, we once again get 525.8 kilometers, which
is not. I think this is what happened. Astronomy Live gave him the equations. He took them, showed them. I pointed out that's an illegitimate thing to do. Astronomy Live then said no, because you see, if you do this, if you do it back, then this. It's like, wait. The values are derived from an inverted triangle. You are then moving those values to your triangle. Those values are not actually existing in your triangle. You have just moved them from the other. Am I getting through at all?
is roughly the same, actually very close to being the same exact answer that we got previously. Again, short, sweet, and simple so that even Antonio can understand it. It doesn't matter if you use an equilateral triangle. It doesn't matter if you use a scaling triangle. We get an answer.
If all you have, which is all they had, is the distance between 2 points, if that's all you have, then you can't triangulate. That's all they had. They didn't have Red's angle and Astronomy Live's angle. You would need those. You'd need the distance between the 2 points and the angles between those 2 points. Minimum. That's a minimum you'd need. If you only had the distance and one angle, you haven't got anything, because the other angle could be a right angle, it could be an obtuse. You understand? You need the angles here. You don't have the angles there. Then you have nothing.
That is pretty much exactly the same. There is practically no fucking difference. Out of 525 kilometers, we're talking about a difference of 1 fucking kilometer.
Where did these 500 kilometers come from? Your observation? No. They came from the fabricated triangle.
1. We have an accuracy of like 99 point something percent. I mean, what fucking more do you want?
99.8.
99. 99.8%. Yes, so again, for our observations, this is a equilateral, this is a scaling. Take an equilateral.
Let me see what I'm displaying. He just said we have an equilateral and a scaling. Does he really?
Lateral triangle, solve.
Is that an equilateral triangle, the one he's discussing now, the one on the left? Is that an equilateral triangle that he's discussing? No, this is an equilateral triangle. That's called the Dunning-Kruger in action.
For x, using the values that we were able to discover during our observation. You will get a value for x of 524. Solve for x here using this scaling triangle. You once again get an answer that's roughly the same. So now this is the part where we, quote, bolt the two triangles together and figure out the altitude of the International Space Station. And that would be this shape right here. So this was, in black, the non-shaded.
Before he goes on too much. Reds, where is it? This is an equilateral triangle. This triangle is unique in two ways. It has the same angles and it has the same length sides. All sides are the same length and all angles are the same. If you think that it's okay to use 53 degrees from Astronomy Live, guess how many degrees are in each corner of a triangle, of an equilateral triangle? Is it 53 degrees?
The portion is the original triangle, and this 53 degrees is the angle at which Astronomy Live's telescope was pointing. So since we know how far away the ISS was from us, being the observer, that forms the backbone of our next triangle. This forms the hypotenuse of a triangle, where here we have 53 degrees of rise.
The poor guy is confused. The 53 degrees there are not there. They're in the bottom corner. Or the top corner. Make your choice. From this triangle, it would be the top right corner. That has a greater distance from the center line. That point there, that's 53 degrees. Dim dim. That's the distance to the ISS. From that point of observation to the ISS. Not from some point along that line to the ISS.
So, you can do a little bit of math and figure out now the altitude of the ISS from G, which is ground, to the ISS. So figuring out this leg of the triangle. And the way you do that is 524.73 kilometers times the sine of 53 degrees. And when we do, it came out to around 260 miles. Once again, Antonio, you can't just say, oh, you bolted two triangles together, therefore conspiracy. You have to actually show where the error is in my mathematics.
Comment to GPS. I will give at Antonio's at the Book of the Sun. He allows people to talk to each other. Some of you just want to have your little safe space where you are. Safe space. What are you afraid of? Okay, question mark and punctuation before with what? Okay. Yeah, that's a needless comment, really. But never mind.
Figure it out, dude. and then get back to me with that. If you can't do it, then shut the fuck up.
This just came to mind. With all the information that was put out and actually shown on screen between both your video and part 2 on Astronomy Live's channel, you can actually go back and figure out the actual degree off of the baseline that your observation point was set up at, Red.
Uh-huh. And,
No, you can't. You absolutely can't. Unless you make an absolute assumption of the position of the moon. And that's an assumption, and you won't bother going and actually checking with each other to see if it's correct or not. But let's continue.
not only that, but I think what I'm going to do is make this even easier for Antonio to understand, because I realize, you know, dead hamsters and everything can kind of be a drag. Get it? Because you're dragging the dead hamster. Do you see what I did there?
Oh, you replaced the hamster. They're fighting over fucking dominance now.
So I'm gonna go ahead and screen share this. Okay. So it's gonna be on the live stream, guys. So you guys will be able to see it. So here you can see Observer 1, Observer 2.
So you see this Observer 1, Observer 2. That's not what was actually taking place. Take Observer 1 or 2, doesn't matter which, and just move them farther away from that projected vertical line. That's right. What do you have now? Well, you have a differently sized and differently placed moon. Oh dear. What do you have transiting the moon? An object. A visual object. Great. How far away is that object? No idea. Why not? Because we have no idea where the moon is. Oh no.
As our line of sight crosses over the International Space Station, they end up on different parts of the moon. As you can see in this diagram, we used an equilateral triangle. Antonio Suprat says, oh
no. Did you hear him say again, equilateral triangle? Look, Red. You'll understand this, and you'll just then, what you should do is say, my bad, Antonio, I was just talking shit. That's what you should say. You just said again, you were using an equilateral triangle. You're not. You're using an isosceles. The isosceles was made up of 2 different scalene triangles. You see? Okay. 2 different scalene and scalene, right-angled scalene, I might add. And you made an isosceles. An isosceles is distinct from an equilateral in that one of its sides is different to the other 2. Understand? That means that the other 2 must be identical. They are in the isosceles. This one has the same angle here, here, and here, and the same length. You can extend these lengths as far, you can make this an infinitely large triangle. Okay? It will still be 60, 60, and 60. This is what you keep referring to. This is not what you were working with. This tells me you really don't know what you're talking about. When people really don't know what they're talking about and they're so convinced that they're correct, that's the definition of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Reds?
no, your triangle should be skewed a little bit, therefore your values would be different. But, unfortunately for Antonio, that's not what actually happens when you do the math. Because even if you skewed the triangle and made it so that Astronomy Live had a greater distance between him and the line of the transit path, and I had a shorter distance between myself and the line of transit path, and you take the difference in degrees into account, you still get roughly the same answer.
Let's listen to him explain.
Line of the transit path, and I had a shorter distance between myself and the line of transit path, and you take the difference in degrees into account, you...
You take the difference in degrees into account. What degrees? The ones invented in the isosceles triangle. Oh, right, those degrees that were just fabricated. Yes, those degrees. Oh, okay.
Still get roughly the same answer. So when we use that answer to build the backbone of our next triangle, which is the hypotenuse, we see that we can figure out the distance to ISS between the ground and the ISS again, and it be accurate. There is no fucking difference between operating with an equilateral triangle and operating with a scaling triangle.
Okay, let's see if I can show this. I will do a little bit of drawing. Oh no, I will use this. Look. Here. If you were to use this from this angle here at 53 degrees, which is this. This is what you're referring to as 53 degrees. Okay? Not this. Okay? This 53 degrees. This distance is longer than this distance. I showed it earlier. Look. Hold the two at the tippy top. Can you see? It's a different distance. That gives you a different value for the distance of the hypotenuse, which you say is hypotenuse. The 53 is here, not here. You think it's here too. Triangles don't quite work that way. But I don't imagine you'd understand.
Is no difference.
Isosceles and scaling.
Isosceles and scaling. Thank you. So
Good.
there you go. If we look at this, and we
that pause was Red registering how many times he said equilateral instead of isosceles. That's what he just, that pause, I'm going to play it again.
The scaling, thank you. So there you go. If we look at this, and we explain this to Antonio over and over and over again, I'm wondering how many times we have to do it before he fucking gets it.
You're gonna have to buy a new hamster first.
I get it. Okay, so make a triangle, figure out how far away we were from the ISS during the observation. That forms the hypotenuse of this right triangle. We know the telescope was pointing upwards at 53 degrees, so we have a hypotenuse here of 524.73 kilometers. We have an angle here of 53 degrees. You can figure out this leg between G and ISS. Pretty fucking straightforward, I do say so myself.
Astronomy Live. Rhetoric. Distance to ISS A. Distance to ISS B. You cannot combine these two to make a different triangle and work from the center of a right angle. You're just fabricating a triangle. That's all you're doing.
So yes, more garbage, please.
This is what it does all of the way across the sky, apart from when it starts going crazy, like some kind of messed up projection. Okay, so it appears like this, and later it appears, and it continues like this, like it isn't a 3D physical object. Whoopsie daisies. You see, with I'm going to get on to reading my whiteboard. Because physicists might be very good at mathematics, but this doesn't necessarily mean that they're good at depicting the real world, especially if they're not artists, which is why they hire lots of artists. They really do hire.
Now, the thing with physicists is...
to Globe Earth Perth, who doesn't understand that you cannot triangulate from one point of observation. You can't triangulate from one point of observation. There was only one point of observation. That was Astronomy Live. He had this 53 degrees here. Okay? 53 degrees. One observation. You cannot triangulate from one observation. But you'll understand soon when I go into GPS.
After having dealt with enough of them over the past year and a half, what they depict is actually perfect if the object you're doing is a sphere that's immobile in its reference frame and with no error for anything. It's all perfect conditions. They deal with a whole different slant when looking at reality.
I mean, let's face it, he's not an artist. Have you seen his drawings?
That was a TIE fighter over the fucking Death Star.
I mean, I don't know. I just want to fucking give up. Just want to fucking give up trying to educate this douchebag.
Well, to be fair, did you see the? I think it was either the first or one of the first videos he ever put on YouTube. That interview about him that he hired, and
He's referring to a video. I might show it. In fact, I think I will. He's referring to a video that he claims I hired to record me. I'm going to play it again.
It was either the first or one of the first videos he ever put on YouTube. That interview about him that he hired and he made happen.
Yes, I remember that.
I'll find it and show you guys the video he's referring to. That he just said, I hired and made happen. Okay? Just bear with me. It's either this one. I'm going to take the music off. Which is by Vivid Photo Visual, not me. So he's either referring to this video, but I think he's referring to another one. I'll find it. Okay? He's either referring to this It might be this one. I don't remember this one. Let's see. Oh no, this was another little thing I did for them. This one where I had they interviewed me. I don't find it now. I think that's the one he's referring to. Let's see. No, this is the video. Okay. It's gone. I don't know where it is. Or let's see. Maybe. Support artist. No, I don't find it. Okay. He's referring to a video that was done by these fellas, who are the daytime, nighttime fellas. I did not ask for that video to be made, dim dim. They wanted to make that video. But this is the delusional thinking of the Globling. I'm going to play that again. The same as Sean Hufford couldn't deal with the fact that the only way to really replicate the Mount Rainier St. Helens side peak photo is on a flat surface. So he claimed that I'd cheated. This guy's claiming that I paid for a video of myself.
I like how
About him. To be fair, did you see the? I think it was either the first or one of the first videos he ever put on YouTube. That interview about him that he hired and he made happen.
That interview that he hired and he made happen. No, I didn't even request it. They were pals of mine. They didn't have anything on. They said, hey, why don't we make a video for you? I said, I don't know, with what? They said, bring some of your artwork. We'll ask you some questions. That's it. And then maybe if you start your own website, you can put it on your website. That's what happened. But delusional globelings can't understand the real world being different to how they imagine it to be. Well, what I just described is what happened in the real world, and both Glenn and Graham would vouch for that. Let's continue.
Yes. I remember that.
I like how he's still trying to remain relevant in the fucking flat Earth community when he's been fucking passed over for so long ago. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, anyway. Alright, more garbage.
But the hiring an artist doesn't mean that you're hiring a good artist.
Well, leaves you
And
out.
we see from the ISS, oopsies, it's not working how it should be working over the real world. If this was a physical object, what is it?
So there was an artist in Astronomy Live's telescope while this was happening and drawing it live.
Ah, that's interesting. I don't remember there being an artist with us.
It was a Cuban midget.
It was a Cuban midget.
Ask, is it David Copperfield, the magician? Why don't you ask him what
Oh,
it
for
might be?
fuck's
He'll be able
sake.
to tell you. You know, the guy that's done the levitation on stage in front of everyone and gone into a glass box.
Yeah, he's got two hamsters. They're fighting for
It's
dominance.
absolutely ridiculous. Pathetic. Now we're going to go back and track the ISS a bit more.
I thought you were drawing to show us something, dumbass.
See a comment that he's
Train of thought has officially been lost. Oh, for fuck's sake, we're back to this shit.
Moving your comment. I don't know why. Sometimes it just holds comments back.
Okay, 82. We've obviously gone a very long time. Can we skip to the part where he starts talking about our footage again and not bitching and moaning about ISS trackers?
Good luck, eBay.
The fuck is...
Why, do you want to go back to that?
Did we hit his Pornhub thing?
No, more, please. Just keep skipping ahead. Skip ahead.
Tracking line.
You know what? We're just gonna call it here. Fuck it. We're just gonna call it here.
Well, hang on, Red. Before you don't call the hangout yet, because I've got one more version on the way here. I made my little stabilization program yet more intelligent, where it...
You see, he's now going to introduce what I showed at the very beginning of this hangout, which is his manipulated footage. He just said he made his program more intelligent. He's going to present footage contradicting his live footage and Rhetoric's mirrored, stabilized footage from the live footage. That's what he's about to present. Watch.
And before you don't call the hangout yet, because I've got one more version on the way here. I made my little stabilization program yet more intelligent, where it recognizes when the station is actually going off the edge of the view, and it won't include those frames. It will only include frames where the station is fully in view, and the best frames that have the station being the smallest over a 1 second average, meaning
Perfect.
sharpest.
Then in that case, I'm gonna...
Okay. He's going to play it, and I will find his video, the live footage, and we will compare and contrast again. You're welcome, Astronomy Live and Red's Rhetoric.
I'm going to try and explain this shit one more time because it keeps bringing up triangles. And rightfully, people called me out. Thank you guys. It wasn't an equilateral triangle. It was isosceles triangle. Thank you so much. And just in case that confuses Antonio, I'm going to explain it one last time. I apologize in advance for this. So, myself and Astronomy Live, we actually did an observation of the ISS when it...
82 Productions, who's one of the guys speaking, the guy who in the Hangout said, remember that video that Antonio made happen? He's writing in the chat. The Book of the Sun, that wasn't the video I was referring to, Antonio. Different firm from before that video. Good deflection though. There is no video of me interviewing me in any way, shape or form before that firm. But feel free to pull it up and show it on Red's Hangout. Just go ahead, you delusional fool.
When it transited the moon, correct?
Look, I think Red is going to try to rescue his fabricated triangle transposing angles to a one observational point triangle. That he's going to do it again. So let's humor him.
Yes.
All right. So when we did that observation, we were apart. We were not together during the observation. So Astronomy Live was in one location, and I was in a different location, about 1.11 kilometers apart. Now, when the ISS transited the moon, I saw it transit over a portion of the moon. Astronomy Live saw it transit a different portion of the moon. So we had two separate tracks to go with, okay? The reason why we had two separate tracks is because that was parallax. And with that, we could actually get some measurements done with that. We could figure out the altitude of the ISS. We could figure out how far away the ISS was from us. We could figure out the size of the ISS, and we could even figure out the speed of the ISS. And Astronomy Live has that video on his channel as well. But anyway, this is the diagram that I used in my original video.
The diagram on the right is an approximation to their observation of the moon. They don't have the angle between them to the moon and the ISS. They don't have the angles at the bottom of the triangle on the right. They don't have those angles. That's right. What do they have? A baseline with a distance and a body in the sky. That's what they have. That's all they have. That dotted line that makes two right angle triangles only works if the person on the left of the triangle on the right is facing the other angle. Do you understand at all?
So, one corner, the bottom corner of this triangle on the right side would be observer 1, the other side would be observer 2. The point at the top would be where the station was. So, the total for this entire angle, the top of this triangle right here, this isosceles triangle, is 0.1212 degrees. If we were to cut...
Look, Red, this is how I know you very, very dim. And Astronomy Live, you know very good at lateral thinking. You know how you just said that the point of that triangle is where the ISS is? So that would be where your triangle meets. Then what you ought to have had is, in your visuals, is one ISS and two moons superimposed on each other so that the ISS was at the point of that triangle. That's what you would have because of the parallax, right? Two different moons. I'll draw it for you. Very kind of simple. That's what you should have had. ISS. This is what you should have had. ISS. And one moon and another moon. This is what you should have had. Yeah, crappy circles, I don't care. This is what you should have had. But what can you establish from this? Nothing. Nothing. You don't have your angle to the ISS. You don't have his angle to the ISS in respect to yours. You only have his angle to the ISS in respect to nothing to do with you. Nothing at all.
Cut this triangle in half, along with its values, we would get 0.0606 degrees on this side. And of course,
It doesn't realize that that depends on the other triangle, and you've just taken those values and moved them over. Those values are not legitimate in that inverted triangle. They're just not legitimate angles, they're not legitimate values. And then you've moved them over to yours.
we were positioned where the track would go right down the middle, that means each of us would get 0.555 kilometers between us and the center line, which is the transit path. Doing a bit of math, you can figure out the length of x, which is the distance between us and the ISS. We would get 524.73 kilometers. Antonio says that this is not representative of reality.
If you have two observers that are at a distance from each other and their triangles to the ISS are different triangles, then you don't have a mean value where you can say that's the distance to the ISS. If you invent a triangle, then you can, but you're just working from fantasy. Do you understand? Red, your distance to the ISS was shorter, so it was less distance than Astronomy Live's distance. Do you understand? Do you get the concept of line of sight and distance at all?
Because in reality, the triangle would have been skewed, i.e. scaling. So it would be something like what is on the right side of this page. So, for example, you would have 0.664 kilometers for Astronomy Live and 0.446 kilometers for me when it comes to the distance between us and the center line of the transit path. So that would mean the angles that we would have for our respective right triangles would be different. For Astronomy Live, it would be 0.0725. For me, it would be 0.0486. But if you do the math to figure out x between these two values and these two values, they are roughly the same, almost exactly the same. 524.75 compared to 525.
Tell you what, Red, I'll help you out. Tomorrow I'll do a drawing with a correct angle for 53 degrees, and we'll see, shall we?
0.8. A difference of quite literally 1 kilometer. And compared to the original value used, there is no issue. None whatsoever. Now,
Santa Claus does exist. He absolutely does.
this line right here, the line labeled X, that is the distance between us and the International Space Station. That does not...
No. The distance between you and the International Space Station would be the side on the right. The distance between Astronomy Live and the ISS would be the line on the left. See? The side on the right will be your distance to it. His distance to it will be different. Are you beginning to see? But it couldn't really be different because the distance between you is only 1 kilometer. It would be tiny difference. You're showing there with your degrees that it's not such a tiny difference. Oopsies.
represent its altitude. So to figure out its altitude, we constructed another right triangle based off of this data.
You invented another triangle. We get it.
The secondary right triangle that we use based on this off of this data is this one. Since we know how far away the ISS is from us, 524.73 kilometers, and we know that the telescope was looking upwards at 53 degrees, that means we have this angle here, and we have a hypotenuse here with this value, which means that we can use some basic trig and figure out how high the space station is from the ground, labeled G. And the way you do that is 524.73 kilometers times the sine of 53 degrees. And when you do, you figure out the value.
Where did the 524 kilometers come from? Oh, an invented triangle. I see.
Between G and the ISS on this diagram. And again, the final result came out to somewhere around 260 miles in altitude, even without taking into account the curvature of the Earth. So once again, Antonio, I challenge you, find an error with my methodology. Find an error with my mathematics. I fucking dare you. And if you're unable to do it, then shut the fuck up.
I've shown an error in your basic understanding of triangles. That's what I've done already. You're welcome.
Astronomy Live, anything that you would like to say?
Yes. Got the fresh output videos. Just let me copy them to my hard drive here. And let's put this.
King Crew writes, hey, do you have a model? No. Okay then. Yes, it's in this book called The Book of the Sun. That's whose channel you're in right now. So yes, there is a model. You're welcome.
I don't think Antonio knows that fucking optical range fighting's been going on since fucking World War II.
That's interesting. In World War II, they used the Knickerbein system from Germany and France to pinpoint targets that can only happen over a flat plane and not the sphericity of the Earth. True story. Then the British used it back. It was very effective. It worked because the Earth is flat. If the Earth had the curvature, those beams would not have triangulated. No, they wouldn't have met. Now, here's the thing. You could go and watch the documentary called The War of the Beams and learn that for yourself. It was not made by flat earthers. Okay? So just go and watch it and learn.
And not just that, I think I found the look on his face and the response you're going to get there, Red.
Ah, interesting.
Brainery writes, I think he means working model though. That's right, a working model that reflects the sun how it really is in the real world, you know, with diverging rays instead of parallel rays like in your model.
Very interesting, my friend. Very interesting. Anyway, Astronomy Live, when you're ready, I'm going to white box you.
Just one second. I'm just loading it now into VLC player. All right.
Alright, I'm going to white box you right now, Astronomy Live, so you may screen share when ready.
He already white boxed him. Okay, he's doing that thing again. Okay, so I'm going to go back and show when he white boxes him, and then he says it again. There's a disconnect there. Look, I'm going back. Okay, 10-second increments. Okay, watch the don't panic symbol.
Going on since fucking World War II.
And not just that, I think I found the look on his face and the response you're going to get there, Red.
Ah, interesting.
I bet you weren't expecting the face I've been making throughout most of this hangout, huh?
Very interesting, my friend. Very interesting. Anyway, Astronomy Live, when you're ready, I'm going to white box you.
Just one second. I'm just loading it now.
Okay, so Gary Lowe writes, what does Knickerbein translate to? Knickerbein, it means a crooked leg. That's right. Who defeated it? The Brits. What was his name? Professor Jones. You're welcome, Gary Lowe.
Now into VLC player. Alright.
Alright, I'm going to white box you right now, Stormy Live, so you may screen share when ready.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you see how the white box is already there? He just said that he's going to in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to go back again, 10 seconds. Watch when the white box happens and then what red says. And it's not lag in feed. The video is happening at the same time as the audio, just like in the one that you're watching right now. See? Look. Okay.
Alright, I'm going to white box you right now, Stormy Live, so you may screen share when ready.
He just did it.
Thank you.
It's already white
Screen
boxed.
share this.
No pressure.
Right there. Okay, cool. So I made my program a little more intelligent. So now it excludes frames when the ISS is within 90% of reaching the edge of the frame. So now you don't get quite as many of those little frames where the ISS is kind of chopped in half by the edge of the frame.
You see how the panel on the left is lower as opposed to their original footage where it's higher? Can you see how this footage is literally flipped?
Looks a lot clearer now, so it's just the best frames out of the pass. Occasionally there will be one where it's really shaky because what it's doing is it's taking the minimum size of ISS over a 1 second rolling average, or 1 second rolling window, and so when it's shaking for a long enough period of time, eventually one of those bad frames can sneak in there. But generally, it's pretty good.
Oh, look.
Okay. So let's see. Is it here? Let me pull up a window just to do the compare and contrast. Just give me a second. And then after this, I will show something that's embarrassing for the person that's called himself GPS in the chat. Just bear with me. Here, the stabilized version. So compare and contrast this with the footage that he just made. Oh, original footage, manipulated footage, original footage, watch. That's the original footage. Panel on the left is higher. Manipulated footage, literally flipped on the horizontal.
Look, the orientation is changing.
The orientation is very clearly changing.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, look at that. On the manipulated footage, it's changing rather drastically. Let's look at the original footage. Oh, it's not changed. Well, from here to here, it hasn't changed. Let's look at the manipulated footage.
Yeah, would you look at that?
Oh,
So I'm pretty happy
It changes almost immediately. Let's look here.
with this. I may have to go back and actually roll some of my earlier ISS videos that I recorded off.
Interesting. On that manipulated, flipped footage. From here, no discernible change. None at all. It's grown large on the screen. No discernible change. Let's move ahead to where it gets kind of weird. Oh, it's just more distorted. let's watch it. We'll just watch this now. This is what he apparently just stabilized, where the panel on the left is higher than the panel on the right.
Flying through the same program and see what I get out of it, because it definitely improved.
Whereas here the panel on the left is lower. Do I need to show any more evidence? Let's continue. We'll play this to the end. Now, could you argue that the station is rotating? Yes, you could. You could argue that, absolutely. But you could always say, how would you know? All you have is distortion, really. And fade to black. Oh dear. So, do we have it clear, Globelings? Look, look, from your hero boys. Original footage. Panel on the left higher. Manipulated footage. Panel on the left lower. What does this mean? It means this footage has at the very least been reversed. But this hasn't been reversed. So it's been reversed in a way that you won't really spot it unless somebody highlights it to you, because you're stupid. So let's continue with this.
The recorded quality there a lot, where we're only getting the clear frames. You can really see the structure of that station.
Can you go ahead and send this to me?
Oh, I sure can. Yeah.
I might be making a video with this later, just to shove it up Antonio's ass. Okay, so what did we learn here today? We learned here that Antonio still doesn't understand triangles, doesn't understand the original observation we made regarding the ISS transit and figuring out its altitude. We also learned that Antonio...
Okay. Bo Nielsen writes at the Book of the Sun, well, your counter-argument is mainly denial. No. Look, my counter-argument is mainly displaying evidence of their own work, including manipulating footage. That's my main argument. It's their own work. It's their triangles I'm debating. It's not saying, nah. It's saying, look, these are the triangles you say you had, although you don't have any angles. What's a triangle without angles? Just an invention. You can make anything you want. If you only have a baseline, which is the only thing they have, 1,110 meters. That was the distance between them. 1 kilometer, just over 1 kilometer. Okay? That's all they have. They don't have the angles from the ends of that line. Do you understand? I'm just pointing out facts.
Doesn't seem to understand how trackers work, and that there can be variations. That doesn't mean that the ISS is fake. He doesn't seem to understand that tracking this shit is actually difficult, and yes, the footage can be shaky, especially when you're actively fumbling with it in real time, and that he apparently doesn't know how to call out the orientation shift because he's either a fucking idiot or his eyes are simply so piss poor that they're equivalent to the fucking hamster in terms of working.
You guys got some shitty fucking humidity, though. That's one thing that makes you guys' stuff get all...
Okay, so Justin Franks is trying to rationalize. Telescopes give a mirror image. First video was live, direct from telescope. second stabilized video was corrected. Look, Justin Franks. I've shown in this very hangout the live footage. I've shown the stabilized version of the live footage. The same footage except stabilized. I then showed the newly created, with a more intelligent program, flipped, mirrored version. And with that mirrored version, you have the masking from the other videos. That's the data in the corner. You're wrong, Justin Franks.
Weird.
Yeah, the humidity can be a problem, but there's more to it than that. I've got footage other than this that looks really clear, where the humidity was actually worse. That wasn't the limiting factor that night. So there were a couple things working against me. The major limitation is I didn't have my monitor on the table facing me, so I couldn't see.
Now we have to understand one thing. The person speaking is Astronomy Live, whose livelihood depends on the Earth being a globe. That's all we need to say. It depends on the Earth being a globe. I'm going to give a simile now. That's like a Nazi whose job depends on the Jews being inferior.
As I was really trying to adjust the focus and tweak it, and I wasn't able to see on a large monitor. I normally like to have a large monitor in front of me so I can really see the detail in the station and really get it tuned in good.
But all this though, Astronomy Live, you did so good, and this is much better than anything Antonio could ever hope to gather. And we conclusively and definitively debunked every single piece of nonsense this guy has put out on the internet. And the only thing he has on us is that I accidentally called an isosceles triangle an equilateral triangle.
Oh, yeah.
All I gotta say is
take that
kudos
victory,
to your,
Antonio. Take that victory. Go ahead, harp on it. Harp on it all night long, Antonio. Make me regret life.
All I gotta say is I make respects to your artist there, Astronomy.
the midget that lives in the telescope.
The midget.
Next time, fucking feed that guy a little bit more so he gets like the next.
Somebody in the chat called Bo Nielsen. Nah, Astronomy Live has a real job. That's right, as an astronomer.
Extra frames. So
Well, let's go ahead and ask live chat. So live chat, I'm still screen sharing Astronomy Live's screen right here, so you can see the space station. So you tell me, do you see a shift in orientation here? Type 1 for yes, 2 for no. Do you see a shift in orientation? Let's see.
type 1 for yes and type 1 for yes and 1 for no.
1 for yes, 2 for no. Go for it.
Danny Diesel makes a good comment. Red, the rover never landed on Mars. Sorry.
Better be typing a 1. If you love squirrels, you better be typing.
There's a lot of ones there.
Wait, what do we want to send in the live chat if we want to thank the goblin in the telescope?
Yeah, the midget in the telescope.
Just to point out, somebody in the chat, what are they called? Feature pick. Reds is going live. Yay, time to go and listen to intelligent people. Peas, you dumb Fs. You mean time to go and listen to a circle jerk? I think that's what, or is it called an echo chamber? I'm not sure. It's one of the two. Could be both, couldn't it?
No, it's a goblin, not a midget.
69.
Those are already rolling in.
Alright, so basically with that, it just means that Antonio either needs to get his eyes checked or to stop being so fucking dishonest. Alright, so I think that does it.
Look at.
That would actually count a bit more if it was coming from somebody with honesty. Like Reds, for instance. He could have said, hey, isn't that footage flipped? That would be the honest thing to do. Also, it would be honest to say, oh, yes, I'll do that now. Instead of, yeah, no, I've already done it. And then go and do it. You know, the sharing of the screen.
Just look at this face. Do you think this face can be honest?
Let's see.
I mean, I think you're right, Brett. I'd love to see Antonio try this himself on a live stream, and also I think it should be pointed out this is the first time we've actually done this together on a live stream, so not bad for our first try.
Not bad. Not.
Jay Savoy makes a good point, which is true. I've covered it in this hangout. You've joined late, I see. Do we know if they were looking towards the north or south? The azimuth would increase if they were pointing north. No, yes, and they were, and I was mistaken. Yes.
Not bad. And I would also love Antonio to do his own measurements of the altitude of the ISS. I want him to do it himself. I want him to put.
I would sooner track Santa at Christmas time. I hear that Santa appears in the sky at Christmas time. I'll track that if they do it this year too.
In the work, I want him to demonstrate that he actually understands how triangles work when it comes to measuring shit. All right.
Yeah, astronomy live, and Red said date night and got something out of it.
Yeah, there you go. And you know what? We got measurements. We got flattered butthurt. We got syphilis as well, but we don't talk about that.
Yeah, well, that was from the Applebee's afterwards.
Oh, I see. But it's like, listen, Antonio, it takes more than simply knowing the names of triangles to be considered smart on YouTube. You got to actually know how to work it. You got to be.
You've got to understand the fundamental principles behind them. That's what you have to do.
Able to. You got to be very skilled in this area, which you are not.
No, you just have to find the formulas, and there are various formulas for the same observation. That's right. You can half the distance and half the degree, or you can double the distance and double the degree. It's the same answer.
He has
The sexy.
That's for figuring out the degree, the angular resolution, that is. Anyway.
It seems like most of his problems were with the actual ISS tracking websites. Well, instead of critiquing other people's websites, which are, I should point out, not designed to control your telescope to actually track the space station, go check out my software, which is designed to track the space station with your telescope. It's on GitHub. Red posted the link on both videos in the video descriptions.
I don't think I think he's actively ignoring that.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying, instead of critiquing other people's websites, which have nothing to do with our actual tracking of the space station, show me where my software is wrong. Show me where I made a mistake anywhere in my source code.
Mm-hmm.
No. You didn't make a mistake in your source code. You made a mistake in the rendering of the video where you flipped it.
I'm fully open to that. By all means, the source code is there. So there's the goalpost. Meet it.
Okay, and my challenge to him, take the raw data from our ISS altitude observation, Antonio, and do your own math.
Extra J writes, well, we'll look forward to you doing your Pipe Horizon experiment sometime. You mean the Horizon Tube test? Oh, relax, it will come.
Math based on data. You have the images. You know exactly where we were located. I posted the exact location, the Latin log, in the description. Do your own measurements off of our data, and let's see what you come up with as a value when it comes to the altitude.
You don't have enough data, Dim. You didn't note your angles. You don't have enough data or enough data.
Altitude of the ISS. Alright? Do it. I fucking dare you. Do it. Show me the proper methodology of getting the altitude, and I want to see what you come up with. So again, you may know the names of triangles. Now actually use them to make measurements. Okay? You may know the names, I actually know how to use them. So let's go with this. Geist View, we're going to start with you. Say what you got to say and get the fuck out.
Hamsters' lives matter.
Perfect.
I'm out.
Team Skeptic, say what you got to say and get the fuck out.
Probably asleep.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Alright, we'll come back to him later. 82 Productions, say what you got to say and get the fuck out.
Now, I'm not saying anyone should take a screenshot of this and play with it artistically, but let's show Antonia what a real artist can do.
Awesome. Alright, Team Skeptic, say...
That's what I was referring to as a fake laugh. Am I an expert in fake laughs? If you can't see what's happening, there's no point. If I was an expert, it would go over your head.
Say what you gotta say and get the fuck out.
Yeah. Well, knowing that I had clicked the mute button is an instant boost to my like confidence, because for like the last 5 minutes, I just thought y'all didn't care. I thought nobody gives a shit what I have to say, because I was talking, but I was muted, because I muted myself. But now that I realize that, it's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. It's alright, we all have FF moments. And finally, Astronomy Live, say what you gotta say and get the fuck out.
Oh, man, I think we pretty much covered it here. I'm happy to hear any critiques he has to make about my ISS tracking software, but I have a feeling that won't be forthcoming.
Remember, the only legitimate critique that he can have of this entire fucking hangout is that I accidentally got the names of the triangles wrong. Between...
No, that's just one. But...
equilateral and isosceles.
But yeah, I just want to reiterate again that tracking ISS is not a trivial matter, and doing it while live streaming, doubly so. So I'm going to put together a little...
Especially if you keep rocking the telescope.
...compilation video of what you're seeing right here, and I'm going to see if I can feed in some of my older ISS videos that were shot offline and are even higher quality as well, and make a whole compilation video of times I've tracked ISS with my software, stabilized using this program, and he can...
Whatever. C4 asks in the chat, so are you going on Reds to defend your position? C4, this hangout has been on before Reds. I invited Reds to join me. Reds didn't want to join me on his own. He wanted at least somebody else to hold his hand. I asked for him to send me an email. I will have a look at my email. I will see if he has sent me an email to say, yo, yeah, I'll join you. And then we'll see what's what. I very much doubt it.
You can explain to the world how there's no orientation shift, even though there's very clearly orientation shift. I would love to...
In the manipulated footage, yes, absolutely. In the manipulated footage.
See him double down on that one.
Yep. Alright, and for the rest of you, if you all can do me a favor, do a hashtag. Hashtag isosceles not equilateral. And we will go ahead and read super chats, even though you all were supposed to be going to Sean Hufford. So for my mods, please do me a favor and...
Frozen Pixel SFX. Where's the flat earth model? It's in the Book of the Sun.
Post the link one more time to Sean Hufford's PayPal so that we can finish off strong here. So, Fear of the Weeper.
Okay, whatever. Let me close that and go here. What's this? Let's see. Yeah, bisect. Just for them to understand. You heard the silence once the question was asked. What happens when you bisect a triangle? There wasn't quite enough information there to that question. Just pointing that out. Okay. Now let's see, what was this? Oh yes, this was to explain to Reds the difference between an equilateral, isosceles, and a scalene. Let's close that. This was to teach Fat the Flat Earth that compression is a real thing in the real world. This, I missed it somehow. I point out that it's from an indexical point of view. Your indexical point of view. And they say, oh, word of the day, indexical, what the heck does that mean? Does that what? They couldn't be bothered actually looking it up. It's an adjective relating to or denoting a word or expression whose meaning is dependent on the context in which it is used, such as here, you, me, that, one there, or next Tuesday. That's one of the possible meanings. An indexical is, roughly speaking, a linguistic expression whose reference can shift from context to context. For example, the indexical you may refer to one person in one context and to another person in another context. Indexicality, Wikipedia, in semiotics, linguistics, anthropology, and philosophy of language, indexicality is the phenomenon of a sign pointing to or indexing some object in the context. So, my degree was in philosophy. That's the way I'm using the word indexical. Maybe, get your head out of your arse. Now let's see, what is this? How GPS works. This is especially for the person whose channel is GPS. Okay? Look. How GPS works? ? Trilateration explained. Enjoy. I'm going to play it all the way through.
How GPS works.
This is for educational purposes.
Trilateration explained. Have you ever wondered, how does the global positioning system work? I guess you did if you're watching this video. GPS uses a method called trilateration. It seems to be widely confused with triangulation, but triangulation requires measuring angles, while trilateration is based upon measuring distances. I'll show you this using a simplified two-dimensional visualization. Let's say we have three transmitters, A, B, and C. They form a triangle. However, they will be able to locate an object not only inside of the triangle, but anywhere in their range. So let's start by measuring the distance to the satellite A. I'll illustrate the measured distance with a circle. I'm not going to show you the receiver yet, because it will be easier to understand how GPS can determine your position without seeing you. So here we are. We've detected that the distance from the receiver to the transmitter A is equal to the radius of this circle. This means that our GPS receiver is located somewhere on it, but we need more information to be sure exactly where. Right now, it can be almost anywhere. Let's now measure the distance.
That would be almost anywhere within that circle, but never mind that.
To the transmitter B. This should vastly increase our positioning precision. Now, the circles intersect in 2 points. This means that our lost traveler can be in either of these points. We're still not sure where exactly, but the third satellite named C should provide us with an answer. We're measuring the distance to the GPS receiver, and here we are. The three circles have only one common point, and if our detected distances are correct, this point of intersection has to be the location of our receiver.
1 second. Let's watch that again.
Light named C should provide us with an answer. We're measuring the distance to the GPS.
Oops. Looks like there's an intersection right there. Do you see? There's a point right there where the three meet. Let's continue.
Receiver, and here we are. The three circles have only one common point.
Having passed the other common point.
And if our detected distances are correct, this point of intersection has to be the location of our receiver. And it really is. Neat. But But how does GPS actually measure distances? Let's see. GPS satellites constantly broadcast two pieces of information: their own location and their current clock time. Because the electromagnetic waves that are used to carry this information through the space travel at a speed of light.
That's interesting. It's talking about satellites. What about base towers? You know, telecommunication towers? How do they pinpoint your location? You know, it's in my location on Facebook. You can go to my location and it tells you where you are. Is it from satellites? Or is it from, well, telecommunication masts?
One can measure a distance using a stopwatch. Well, if it's quick enough to tap it twice in a millionth of a second with precision. Let's say that at this moment all devices, the satellites and the receiver, have synchronized clocks. I'll illustrate the time on a timeline. At the beginning of our timeline, every satellite sends out its own position and time. But before this information reaches the receiver, it's already outdated. I'll mark the arrival times with letters on the timeline. Now the receiver knows where and how much time away from it every satellite is to be found. Multiplying this by the speed of light easily gives us the distance instead of the time. Now, finding the common point of all three distance circles and taking into account the locations of all satellites will give us our own location. And this is how GPS is able to measure distance using a clock. Of course, in real world, this all happens in a three-dimensional instead of a two-dimensional space, so it's a bit more complicated, but the basic principles are the same. I hope you've learned something useful. Thanks for watching.
Very good. That's how trilateration, not triangulation, is used for finding locations. Very good. Special topics. GPS, brackets 6 of 100 end brackets, triangulation with satellites. Let's watch this all the way through too.
Welcome to Electron Line. How do we triangulate our position based on the satellite readings or the distance from us to the satellite using GPS? Well, it works as follows. We need at least 3 satellites, and as we will see in a moment, we actually need a 4th satellite. Now, that's kind of odd because normally to triangulate yourself in a position in space, XYZ space, you should only need 3 reference points, so 3 satellite readings. But what happens is as follows. Let's say that we get the distance to the first satellite. Let's call that D1. Well, if we only know D1, that means you only know position, how far away you are from that satellite. That can be anywhere in 3-dimensional space. That puts you on a sphere somewhere at a distance D1 away from the satellite. Assuming that this here is our first satellite, let's call that satellite number 1. If we know D1, that places us somewhere on a sphere around that satellite, a distance D1 away from the satellite. We just don't know in what direction. Now we take a reading to the second satellite, and again this is assuming we know where this satellite is at. We know the location of the satellite and we know we're D1 away from that first satellite. We now take a reading on the second satellite. We know where the second satellite is at and we know our distance to that satellite. Now we draw a second sphere around the first sphere, so let's say that our second satellite, we know the location, it's right there, and we know we're a distance D2 away from that satellite. That means if we're a distance D1 from the first satellite and a distance D2 from the second satellite, wherever the 2 spheres overlap, that's where a circle is formed. We must now be somewhere on that circle. So let's go.
Let me pause that so I can read Gleam's comment. Gleam, interesting fact. GPS is built, from the state plane coordinate system and then converted to a spherical coordinate system like WGS84, is it? Yeah. Or theodolite, a default Cartesian. Yep. Civil engineers use plane geometry, but for their paperwork they have to convert to spherical. for their paperwork. They use plane, but for the paperwork, of course, it has to be supported. The globe has to be supported. Now, what we're looking at here are spheres bisecting each other, not circles. Spheres bisecting each other. And this guy does a very good job of explaining this in principle.
There must be some sort of circle where the two spheres overlap. Now, it places us anywhere on that circle, but we don't know yet exactly where on the circle. Theoretically, if we know the exact position of each of the three satellites and the exact distance of the three satellites, having a third satellite, let's say a third satellite is over here, satellite number 3, we know that we're distance d3 away from that satellite, we'll again have a sphere around the third satellite, and notice that that sphere will then intersect that circle in two places. We first draw d3 here, this is d3, and that means we now know that we must either be at this spot or at this spot. Typically, when you take a close reading on those two spots, one of them seems like a reasonable value and the other one is probably extremely unreasonable, not likely to be at. So with some small calculations, we should be able to eliminate one of the two spots. And then we know an exact position, we will know exactly where we are. The problem with that is we were assuming that we knew the exact positions of the satellites, and more importantly, we knew the exact distance from us to the satellite, which is typically not very easy to do. If there's any sort of error or uncertainty in those readings, you will find out that we don't have an exact spot where we could be at. We'll probably have some sort of region where we can be at, and that region could be quite large. It could be hundreds of meters in radius, even thousands of meters in radius, which really would give us a very inaccurate position for ourselves. That's where we need a fourth satellite. What we then do is we have a fourth satellite somewhere. Let me use a different color. Fourth satellite, there it is. And again, we can measure our distance to the fourth satellite. And even though that distance may not be absolutely accurate, what we can then do is we can do calculations with the, let's go like this. We can do calculations by eliminating one of the three satellites and utilizing the fourth instead of the first, the fourth instead of the second, the fourth instead of the third. And eventually, through some calculations, we can actually come up with what we call a delta t quantity. The reason why we need a delta t is because the distance from a satellite to a position, or the position that we think we are, is simply an equation of distance equals velocity times time. Distance equals velocity times time. And the velocity, of course, is the speed of light because that's the speed at which the signal travels to us. The time will be equal to the time difference between the time of the satellite and the time of our receiver. So basically what it comes down to is that distance 1, 2, 3 is equal to the speed of light times the distance times the time difference between the time of the satellite, the space vehicle, minus the time of the receiver. That difference in time has to be absolutely accurate. Now, we already know that the space vehicles have atomic clocks on board, and their time is very, very accurate. It may not be absolutely perfect, but it's pretty close to being perfect. The problem is our receivers don't have those atomic clocks. They tend to be small, and we can't put an atomic clock in them. They're very expensive. So what we need to do is we need to somehow find a way to adjust for that. And if we don't, then there's a certain amount of uncertainty in here, which then results in a certain amount of uncertainty as to where we think we are. But if we can come up with a delta t that eliminates the uncertainty and the error in our receiver time, then we can have a very accurate difference between those two, and then we can have a very accurate distance for each of the three satellites. And that's what we need here. That's what we need the delta t for. And by incorporating the information of the fourth satellite, we're then able to come up with what we call a correction time, which can then be added or subtracted from the receiver time, which then will give us a very accurate difference between the satellite, space vehicle, and the receiver time. And then we can get a very accurate reading of where we actually are. It's amazing that we can do that with a fourth satellite, but that again, that is why the GPS system absolutely requires a fourth satellite. If at any given time you can only see three satellites, you're going to get a very coarse feeling or very coarse reading of where you are. And if you get that fourth satellite in there, then you can get a very accurate reading very quickly by calculating that delta t. And that's how our GPS system works.
Do you understand? GPS. Flat Earth data rights. Just 1 second. Trilateration networks commence the same way as triangulation nets. After the measurements are reduced from slope distances to horizontal distances, the law of cosines can be employed to calculate interior angles and the coordinates of position. Tangent. Talking of angles. Knots. Travelling and knots. Who else has noticed that knots don't appear to be knots any longer, but instead a GPS knots? What does this mean? If you're crossing a grid and the GPS tells you you're at this point on the grid, and now you're at this point on the grid, and this is the time taken between the two, then your knots are X. However, what should I use? I'll use this. If this is the grid, then this is 5 knots, and this is 5 knots. True story. Okay guys, that's it. Thank you very much for hanging out. Oh wait, I was going to check my email to see if Red has sent any communication. Oh, Antonio, stop it. Let's see. Oh, that's interesting. No, there is none. There's one from there, which is saying, I don't know. Oh wait, there. Who is this? Let me see. From TA. Okay. This is that I can confirm that people or bots are watching before your stream. Okay. Huh. Interesting. Also, I'm banned on your channel and I don't know why. Needs. That's a bummer. I don't know who you are. I don't know what your channel name is. Okay, 1 second. I will just reply to this guy. Sorry to do this whilst I'm live. Oops. Now, I will say this, okay? Some people, especially in Germany, are having YouTube take actions that are out of the control of the channel on which they're taking those actions. So somebody passed me info last week or the week before showing a screen grab of a Google moderator team having taken action. So wait a second. Flat Earth data rights. You had a hard drop out of 30 when I came on. What? Wait, I dropped for 30 seconds? Did I? Is that what you're saying, Flat Earth data? Or did 30 people leave the chat because they saw you coming in? That wouldn't surprise me. Like, dude, no. Not dealing with him. He knows too much. And Gleam is there going, yeah, I just did my mellow way, dude. Like, Gleam. And then Gleam mentions something that makes her eyes spin on their heads. Buy Antonio subs. The others, says Danny Diesel. So you're saying latest to everyone. Cool. Wait. Yes. So flat Earth data. It doesn't surprise me. I might. So I meant to do this at some point. I'm going to highlight some of your videos. I'll just do a Hangouts and highlight some of your videos. They're very difficult for Globelings to argue with, but triangles are difficult for Globelings to argue with, but they still will argue. You know, it's like, duh. Anyway. Little red spies. Yeah. Oh, well. Okay. Red. It's very simple, dude. You can't triangulate without angles. You can't invent angles. You can't make an observation with just a baseline and then just invent the angles involved. You just can't do that. That's what you did. That is literally what you did. You don't know that this wasn't your triangle. Or better said, I'm going to draw another line in a different colour. You don't know that this isn't your triangle versus Astronomy Live. You don't have any data. I looked at your stuff. Dr. Zach looked at your stuff. You don't have enough data. You don't have the angles. If you don't have the angles, you don't have anything. If you only have one side, you need at least 2 angles. And you don't have them. Okay. And with that, guys, I'm going to bail. Thank you very much for hanging. I'm going to look in the chat. Yeah, sorry, I meant to say this. I will be doing a hangout with Ice to Sea soon, in the next few days. That should be fun. Because Ice to Sea, in case you haven't gone to her channel, she's done things like gone up on a plane and asked the pilot to note what the instrumentation says. If you're turning slightly left or right, does it tell you, does it show you that you're turning slightly left or right? In which case, if you think that you're flying straight over a globe, but instead you're flying in a curve to the right or a curve to the left, does your instrumentation tell you? With a real pilot in a real plane? Right, okay, Tuesday, cool, nice to see, brilliant, I look forward to it. Okay, folks, that's it, I'm bailing. I've enjoyed this, but man, my throat is dry now. Hasta luego, or adeu a tots.